books in the store ledger too.
Is that doable or is that a problem? Joe, it's a problem. Is this, what is that for?
Michael Goldberg's presentation. Watch it. Oh, what kind of a question
I'm
is
going to be
that?
rolling too. Stop doing back to me.
Thanks, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. Would you join us in a salute to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll let you do your award.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws, 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2014 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2013, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier?
Here.
Mr. Leventhal?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has its permission to discreet, permit, or prohibit the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire this governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 16th meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. We are going to start the meeting off with some presentations of the Employee Longevity Awards, and it's always a fun thing to thank everyone for the time spent here. Then we're going to open up the floor for any public comments, so anyone who would like to speak. We ask you to just come up here and give us your name and tell us what you'd like to tell us. After that, we'll have two presentations. The first is going to be a presentation. These are going to be short presentations, just to remind you. The first one is going to be on first night, Maplewood South Orange, and the second one is going to be the Maplewood Garden Club, talking about a 2015 internship program. We have an ordinance on final passage, and that is going to have a public hearing, so if you're here to speak about that, I'll ask if anyone wants to speak about that ordinance. You would come up at that time. And that is just to resolve some confusion on our current ordinances around maintaining structures and land in town. We have another ordinance on final passage, and that is to make amendments to the design review standards for the Maplewood Village Alliance and the Springfield Avenue Partnership. After that, we're going to have 6 discussion items, although the first discussion item, if you have, and by the way, if you need an agenda, we have them up here at the clerk's desk. We have a hearing on collection of recyclables. That's going to be somewhere around 9 o'clock tonight. We're going to put that at the end, tail end of the meeting. We're going to be discussing the reorganization of the Township Committee for 2015, talking about home-based business ordinance changes that are proposed by the Chamber of Commerce. We have some recommendations from the Village Alliance on temporary outdoor weather doors and sidewalk enclosures during the winter. We're going to talk about the post office redevelopment project, talking about some building and site design issues. And then we have a report from the Code Enforcement Committee regarding signs and street obstructions, temporary basketball hoops, lawn signs, definition of right-of-way, and rental registration charges. We'll have a consent agenda, and that is going to deal with some contracts. We're going to pull the recycling contract off until after the hearing, setting rates for off-duty police officers, a couple of contract approvals for towing, dealing with some budget transfers, approval of minutes, and talking about our affordable housing obligation. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that when we get to the consent agenda. After that, we'll have our second public comment period. Then we'll have reports from departments, administrative reports, reports from elected officials, and then we will adjourn for 2014. So the first order of business is Mr. Manning, our Township Administrator, will announce the Longevity Award winners, and the Township Committee will go down there and be a receiving line.
Hopefully you've all had better receiving lines.
Get them? We're going to do the 5 years first, okay? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Manning. I'm the Township Business Administrator, and assisting me will be Cesar Correa, the Assistant Township Administrator. We're giving out longevity awards. We're going to give them in increments of 5 years. So the first ones are for those people who have just, during this year, celebrated 5-year work anniversary with us. So we have, I'll say their name and their department, and if they're here, come on up. If they're not here, we'll get them their pins, okay? We give pins, really nice pins. What? Okay. Okay, so at the library, Keisha Miller, 5 years. Renisha Elisant. Aiden Hill. Ari Asher. And by the way, Renisha is in the pool, and Aiden is also the pool people. Ari Asher is library. Edward Starzinski. If you could come in the center, by the way, that would be much better. So that thing. Edward Starzinski, Public Works. Joseph Giorgio, Fire Department. Elijah Maloney is in Recreation. Jolene Corey, PD. Justin Moen, 5 years, PD. Okay, and Morton J. Harris, Health Department. I know he's here. So again, thank you. Yeah. Congratulations. Hey, how you doing? Okay. For 10 years, Edward J. Wraith at the Maplewood Police Department, Michael Banks in the pool, Donita Brown at the library, William Kruger, Fire Department, Michael Gilligan, Fire Department, Bridget Mike, Police Department, David Elisante, Recreation, Sandra Holtz, Library, Amanda Egan, Library, Michael Porter, Pool, Andrew Nudie, Clerk, Michael Hannigan, Fire Department, and Yvonne Christian for Recreation, in the Recreation Department. Congratulations. Thanks. Hey, sorry about that. Thank you. Yes, congratulations. Going on to 15 years, and Thomas Bailey, Police Department. Brett Jaruski, Fire Department. William Washington, Recreation. Frank Monaco, Public Works. Richard Solskowski, Fire Department. Tracy Brodnick, Police Department. Peter Kunzel, Police Department. Miguel Perez, Fire Department. So that's 15 years. Yay! And you know, that's really an accomplishment in this day and age. And speaking of that, going on, now we're at 20 years, and we have quite a few. Benjamin Kaufman in legal, Joseph Laricki in building, Walter Nugent in the fire department, Giancarlo Rinaldi in public works, Kevin Cahill, Department of Public Works, Ed Galanti, our assessor, Marcus Stewart, PD, Kathleen Champion, library, Kenneth Yaruski, fire department, and Robert Buckner in the Department of Public Works. So 20 years. So the next category is 25 years, and we have people for that. We had Robert Rowe. He was here last meeting, and we gave him his pin. He's the health officer and couldn't be with us tonight. William Hairwagon Jr., Fire Department, 25 years. I know he's here. Congratulations. Alan Bamdis with the Fire Department, 25 years. And Thomas McNulty, Fire Department, 25 years. No one's here for 30, but there is a 35 year, and Elizabeth Fritzen gets it for 35 years. Congratulations, man. 35. Yes. But not to, we have another one, even more. 40 years, Mario Riccardi. Mario Riccardi, he's in Public Works. I'm not sure he's here. No, he's not. 40 years. Holy man. And that is our presentation for this year. We, in the future, will be giving these out at our annual Employee Appreciation Picnic, which is the Friday after Labor Day. So just so this is the last one that's going to be here, but we are giving them out, and we do appreciate everyone who came tonight. Thank you.
So let's have all the
Yes, Dan.
recipients to come on up and come here and take a picture of the group shot.
All right.
Come on up. You're gonna have to get tight, like you like each other. Come on, John.
Vic, are you photobombing that?
No, I'm not.
Jeez.
Yeah, come on. Who's like the highest ranking person here? Take charge. There you go. Very good. All right. Smile. All right, let's give him a round of applause. I can't believe no one's staying for the meeting. Right, no one.
Why is this
That's
day
all
different
right.
from all
That's
other
right.
days?
Joe's out there talking. Okay, well, we're very happy to do this because I think oftentimes public workers get a bad rap, and we want to thank everybody who has been working for the town for such a long time. So thank you very much. We are now going to move to our first public comment period. If there's anyone who would like to address the Township Committee, please come on up. John, you're first.
I lost my script. I know I have 3 minutes.
That's what you do. You have 3 minutes.
Somebody start the clock. When I heard
got
about
you.
this, I asked Vic, I sent him an email, I wanted to get permission.
John, you got to use the mic.
Talk to the microphone. Yeah, let me bring it. Okay, please start the clock again. So when I got news of this, I asked Vic if I could address the committee or somehow or other say something about the July 4th project. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm taking out my art hat as my 20 years of employment, and I want to show you something that I made that's
It's on.
it says a lot about what the art project was for me. It's just a piece of art. I want to commemorate my receiving and taking of the pin for 20 years of service by showing this and sharing this with you. It's a piece of art that I made for the July 4th project, and really, rather than telling you what the July 4th project meant for me, which would take a long time. I really hope, and I'm talking to the folks out there, that if you have any ideas for next year, you get in touch with me, maybe Drew, Liz, or someone else like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. So, congratulations again on your 20 years, and if anyone's out there would like to offer some suggestions, John's project last year was putting the flags up on the backstop, which was a terrific idea, and it looked great. Actually, we needed more backstop than we thought originally, right? So if you have ideas, we are looking for some. I know John has ideas, but if you have other ideas, please contact our town clerk, and we can get you in touch with John. Thank you, John. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee at this time?
Good evening. For the record, I'm Deborah Collins, Director of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action for the County of Essex and the county's liaison to the Township of Maplewood. I have nothing to hand out this evening. However, I would like to confirm that, Mr. Mayor, you have received notice that the striping work was done on Valley and Tuscan
Yes.
Road, and we hope it meets with your satisfaction.
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And next Friday, changing the topic, we will have reindeer at the Turtleback Zoo to celebrate the season. This should be very exciting from 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock p.m. It's part of our holiday lights festivities, and we hope that everyone will join us for what promises to be a very exciting time. And other than that, I'd just like to wish everyone a very happy holiday season, and I'll see you next year.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee? Okay. Seeing no one else coming up, we will close the first public comment period. You're not coming up to speak, are you, sir? Okay. And we will have a second public comment period later on in case anyone wants to address us. Our first presentation tonight is Michael Goldberg with the First Night Maplewood South Orange, so why don't you come on up?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I come to you tonight on behalf of First Night Maplewood South Orange to share with you an update on our event and what we're doing, and to thank you, of course, for your support, which I'll get into a little bit. So if I may, I'll just jump right into it. So I want to talk a little bit about what is First Night for those that are new to town or don't know anything about it or the history. I want to talk about our event specifically that we've got planned this year, where it is, who's performing, how we are funding it, who our sponsors are, and who's putting it together, who the board is, and then where people can get more information. So just a little, yeah, please. So just a little bit of background. So First Night was formed in Maplewood and South Orange a little over 20 years ago in 1993, and from the mission statement, as you can see there, I'll just read it quickly for those at home. To broaden and deepen the public's appreciation for the visual and performing arts through an innovative, culturally diverse, and high-quality program on New Year's Eve, and to offer families in the community a shared cultural experience in Maplewood and South Orange that is accessible, affordable, and drug and alcohol-free. So it started way back in Boston back in the 70s as an alternative to the traditional wild and crazy New Year's Eve celebrations to make it a more family-friendly environment. They've had it here in Maplewood and South Orange, like I said, for about 20 years. 2 years ago, it went on hiatus. The long-standing members of the board, you know, they were tired, they were burnt out, they'd been doing it a very long time. It's a lot of work, a lot of effort, as I've learned very quickly. And so it went away. There was a lot of demand, a lot of inquiry about bringing it back. Now that I'm retired from my service in South Orange, I had some free time and I wanted to volunteer to help bring it back with a number of people. So let me tell you about what we're doing. So this year, First Night will be back. We're having it in a single location in Columbia High School. We're taking over the full first floor of Columbia High School. The event is running from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. Again, there'll be many different events going on simultaneously throughout the building and a variety of their facilities, the different gyms, the auditorium, the Black Box Theater, the dance studio, classrooms. There'll be a bunch of stuff going on simultaneously, all different types of events, which I'll talk about in just a second. Again, New Year's Eve, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow, believe it or not, from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. at Columbia High School, all contained in a single location. Some of our activities and performers this year, we have an a cappella group, we have origami and crafts that we've done in the past, we have a circus performer, Lisa Liu, we have a magician named Simon Mandel, we have a local or a quite famous musician called Mr. Ray. We have a hip-hop dance troupe called Ill Style and Peace. We have a basketball acrobat called the Hoop Wizard. Some dancers, Crazy Rhythm Fancy Feet. And our big headliner this year is a band called the Nerds. Any of you that are familiar with the Jersey Shore music scene, the Nerds have been around for probably 30 years, and they're still selling out clubs up and down the Jersey Shore. They're the greatest performance band other than the East Street Band in the state of New Jersey, and they're it's definitely a can't miss scenario. So I really hope everyone will come out. We've gotten incredible interest and enthusiasm from people that are familiar with the Nerds. They have a following, people follow them around, and I'm so glad we're able to bring them to Maplewood and South Orange. In addition to those performers, a handful of other acts that we have, an act called Rizzo's Reptiles is an animal act that brings reptiles for the kids to interact with. Again, crafts from Donna Drupak, glitter tattoos, princesses, balloon twisters, face painters, variety artists like a stilt walker, karate, yoga, Zumba, an acoustic performance, and then a lot of our local restaurants. Just so happened they're from South Orange, but we solicited restaurants in both towns. Some of the restaurants in South Orange are the ones that volunteer to step up and participate. Arioshi, Munchies, Tito's Burritos, Dancing Blender, and Walia will all be in the cafeteria selling their food for people. So you can come for the evening, come with your family, have dinner, and spend the night. And then the conclusion of the night, we are having fireworks outside on Ritzer Field from Garden State Fireworks at the end of the evening. So I've been working very closely with your fire department on that, and they've been incredibly helpful. As far as tickets are available now, and they're discounted $15 now at a number of these merchants. Prices go up after Christmas to $20 and between Christmas and then at the door for $20. You can also purchase them online on our website, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But they could, if you want to buy them in person, $15 cash in South Orange at Spark House, the library, or BCB Bank. Maplewood at either of the library branches, and at King's Supermarket. Again, $15 now. After Christmas goes up to $20. So buy your tickets now and save a few dollars. Again, as you can see, we have a lot going on. It's an enormous effort, and we certainly couldn't do it without the help of our generous sponsors. Namely, obviously, the Township of Maplewood is providing in-kind services for police and fire and logistical support, and we're eternally grateful. So I want to personally say thank you to the Township Committee and the residents of Maplewood that are helping to support the effort. Likewise, your counterparts in South Orange are similarly a title sponsor, providing a large contribution. Then we have BCB Bank and Atlantic Health provided large donations as well, and they'll be there on site with us to help us celebrate and help promote their endeavor as well. We have the next tier of sponsors. We have Maple Crest Ford is underwriting what we're calling our kids zone. Again, the face painters and balloon twisters, that type of thing. They're sponsoring that. The Gateway, it's the new apartment building on the old Bifas site in South Orange. They're sponsoring our fireworks. They're making that possible. And lastly, we have an organization that's sponsored First Night for years and years and years, doesn't want to be named. We're recognizing them as an anonymous donor, but they've been extremely generous as well. And of course, bringing this to closure, again, without our sponsors, we wouldn't have the financial means, and without these people, we wouldn't have the manpower to pull this off. So our board this year, myself as the president, Ileano Castillo as our vice president, Sandy Goodman as our treasurer. Sandy was the one holdover from prior years. She participated in this for many, many years and brings a lot of historical knowledge, has been very, very helpful. Chick Bisberg, Amy Goldberg, Kathy Greenstone, Scott Greenstone, Karen Harris, Laura Lee Jacobs Martinez, Maya Martinez, our South Orange liaisons, Sheena Collum and Steve Schnall, and our Maplewood liaison, Committeeman Jerry Ryan. we thank everyone for their help and support. We also have a number of volunteers. The Boy Scouts are going to be there volunteering. We have YouthNet is providing volunteers. So it really has been the proverbial, it takes a village to make this happen. Everyone's coming together, and we're really, really excited. I think it's going to be a great event. And lastly, if anyone wants more information, anyone watching on TV or in our audience or any of you, we have a website, firstnightmwso.org, Facebook page at Soma First Night, and a Twitter feed at Soma First Night. So that's it. I try to go as quickly as I can. I wanted to say thank you again for your support and your help. Liz Fritzon's been very helpful, administrator, everyone in the township has been extremely helpful. The school district, of course, has been instrumental. So thank you for all of that. I wanted to wish you all happy holidays, Mr. Mayor, a happy early birthday. And if you had any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, I'll let you get on with your evening.
Questions?
I perked up on the nerds. I've been a nerd since like the early 70s.
Yeah, they're rock stars, no pun intended. They're fantastic. Yeah.
So it takes a village and a township. Right? Yeah, not just a village. No, it takes a village and a township. Okay.
But yes, a village
Just
and
to
a
be
township.
clear.
Yes, fair enough.
You might want to change that in your script.
Everyone has ponied up, Mr.
You know?
Mayor.
Hey, pony up. I like that.
I do remember, Michael, one of the things that you, and Mr. Goldberg, one of the things that you wanted to do when y'all got interested in reactivating this was to sort of reconnect with some of the younger folks that had not been that had not been as involved as First Night began to taper off when it was terminated last. Can you tell from ticket sales so far anything about? Are you succeeding in talking it up? Do you have a sense as to how well you're doing so far?
We've been getting really great response. I mean, we've done a lot of events, Harvest Fest, we were there, and we had Play Day in South Orange, and some of the local tree lightings recently, and people are excited. Ticket sales have been steady, but the reality is, like most people, wait to the last minute for New Year's Eve, right? It's right. What we all do. So we're expecting a big, big sales at the door, big sales last couple of minutes, but the response has been great, and it's not just been Maplewood and South Orange. We've gotten people from surrounding communities. This is the only First Night in all of Essex County. Montclair used to do it. They're not doing it anymore. The only other nearby one is Morristown. So we're really hoping to draw, obviously it's Maplewood and South Orange, but everyone's welcome, and we hope other people come.
Terrific.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
your
much.
Time. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the Maplewood Garden Club.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Township Committee members. Last summer, you may remember that the Garden Club facilitated the initiation of a pilot program for the Maplewood Rutgers internship, which allowed a Rutgers University landscape architecture student to come and work in Maplewood for 12 weeks with the DPW as an employee of the DPW, focusing on the horticulture and Memorial Park. With the help of the DPW crew members and many hours of physical labor donated by David Nile, there was an enormous amount of work done in the park. The shrubs were pruned and planting beds were refurbished. Literally truckloads of invasive weeds and saplings were removed from the park. And the beds next to the pedestrian bridge near the duck pond were replanted and looked really beautiful by the end of the season. We thought that it looks really good, and a lot of people that come by that saw us working or saw David working really appreciated the work that was being done and noticed the difference. We're presenting tonight to ask you to support the continuation of this program and to approve the continuation of funding it through the Open Space Trust Fund. We recently met with Laura Lawson, who's the chair of the Landscape Architecture Department at Rutgers, and Bruce Crawford, who is the director of the Rutgers Gardens, to get their input on how they felt about last summer's program, and they thought it went very well, and they were very enthusiastic about continuing it. The outcome of the meeting was a proposal that David and I developed that Mr. Manning circulated, and you may have already read. But I'd like to just point out some of the features of it and some of the changes that we think might be appropriate for the coming year, now that we've been through the 1 year and we've experienced it. One of the main things that Rutgers brought up, and we agreed, was that 2 interns would be better than just 1, because the one fellow last summer was pretty much single-handedly working unless David was there or he could get some crew members to help, and it was a long haul because it's a big park and it needed a lot of work. So the idea that Rutgers and we developed was to have 2 interns, one a senior intern who would be responsible for the design aspects of the horticultural work that would be done in the park. They would also guide a second junior intern in the project. They would also anticipate the requirements of whatever might be necessary based on the Memorial Park master plan if it is adopted by that time, and also would guide the junior intern in regular shrub maintenance and rejuvenation and replanting of the beds. The junior intern would be responsible for accomplishing the horticultural improvements in the park, for the shrub pruning and training DPW staff on pruning techniques, and bed maintenance like mulching, edging, tree protection, woody weed removal, and they would continue the GIS mapping that was begun last season with the intern. Both interns would be hired for a 12-week period from mid-May to mid-August. They would work 29 hours a week each, and they would work at a rate of $17.50 for the senior per hour and $15 for the junior intern per hour. That would total $10,900 for the 12 weeks for both of them together at $5,900 and $5,000. Also, the senior intern would undertake a class project or independent study that would be related to a specific park site, so that during the season while they were working here, they would be able to execute a design and put it in place. Last year we had an idea to do something like that, but by the time the intern arrived in May and started to anticipate what they might want to do, it got so late into the season with all of the procedural effort and design effort that planting time didn't occur until August, which is very difficult for the plants to survive through the heat of the summer there. So we're attempting to do this so that the student would do it during their coursework in the spring, so by the time they hit the ground in May, they would be able to really begin the execution process. And finally, a few words about Memorial Park. We all want to preserve the landscape appeal of Memorial Park and recognize the park has faced a lot of challenges in the past and will continue to face challenges ongoing. But especially one of the biggest issues is facing the ash borer and the infection of those and destroying the ash trees in the parks, and also the destruction of the trees over the last few seasons with the terrible storms that we had. Hopefully the intern will be able to help recommend some plantings and some plant designs for us in terms of replacing trees, because they do have to replace over a long period of time. And we feel that last year's internship really demonstrated that this was a successful way to make progress on the park and its refurbishment. And our proposal for this year builds on the efforts of last year and our experience of last year. So we hope you will agree with us and support this plan and the application for funding. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Great. Mr. Nile, were you going to say anything or no? Just go to the mic if you were.
Just to underscore the point of the senior intern, there's a lot of work there that the senior intern couldn't really pay attention to design issues. Some of the trees in Memorial Park were planted there really because they were cheap, don't really fit. Some of those issues he just couldn't address. So a large part of this two-part proposal, two internal proposal, is to make use of the expertise that they require at college. There will still, of course, be a lot of physical work. That they'll both be doing that, of course, but the idea of having the senior intern get started ahead of time, which also will require cooperation by one of the Rutgers instructors, either to support him as independent study or to allow him the scope to come to a Maplewood specific project. That's an aspect that Laura Lawson, the Dean of the school, is working right now. Faculty. So all that will bring more expertise and beneficial projects. And
Mr. Manning, is the request being considered by the Open Space Trust Fund, or is this outside?
No, it will be considered because we still have enough time for that. But we just received it recently, so we have to get it through them. I'm not sure if we had gotten it yet there, Kathy. Ms. Leventhal.
I don't believe that there's a request in, but I think, I know that they're meeting tomorrow night for the first meeting, so
We'll have the request in by
an email
tomorrow noon.
should go to myself and Brian Callahan.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So typically what happens is the advisory committee takes a look at all the projects that come in, and they make a recommendation to us. We're going to get that in January. What is your deadline? What are your deadlines that you need to know this by?
Well, for the senior intern, seems to be a reasonably positive outlook by the end of January, I would think. Laura Olson to actually work the problem.
Is the end of January not too late?
I don't think so, because the student wouldn't actually start the work until March.
Oh, very good. Okay. I just was thinking if it was connected with a particular class that we'd have to, would we need to commit to them at the beginning of the semester, even if the work isn't actually starting in March?
It won't be a whole semester's task for this senior intern.
Okay.
Part of it.
So right now, we're scheduled to talk about the Open Space Trust Fund on January 31st. That's as far as you can be in the end of January. So we usually don't make a decision then, but you know, this is an exigent circumstance, so we might be able to give you a sense then. It's a little hard to make the decision now without seeing everything else that's come in. It's not a significant amount. You know, $11,000, and I guess there's some taxes and stuff like that. But so I think if we can get it to them tomorrow, get the consideration, then we'll certainly deal with it in January.
Could we, sorry, I was going to ask if we could get a feedback from the Township Committee on their feeling about whether or not they want to proceed with it, whether or not it was funded by Open Space. We could give them, give Rutgers a positive response now to maybe begin thinking about how they would develop the program going forward for the spring.
Mayor, I'd like to suggest that we do give our at least initial impressions because of the scholastic calendar. And also, the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Committee is that. It does make recommendations. It's advisory, and we make the final decisions. And hopefully, well, we make the final decision. So, you know, just taking our pulse right now.
Yeah, I guess I don't have an objection to that. I guess I just would like to respect the process with the Open Space Trust Fund. You know, there, but you know, I don't have any. I think if people want to express their points of view, I think that would be helpful. I mean, I'll tell you my point of view. I think we should do it, particularly since we're adopting the master plan, or going to be talking about the master plan, adopting it. This seems to me something that fits that. We also have the issue of the borer going in there and killing trees, and as you mentioned, so I think we got to have a plan. We have a new DPW director on, so I think everything's just coming together, and it makes a lot of sense to have this kind of information and planning done. Yes.
I think I would agree with you. Not seeing all the other requests, though, I'm a little bit on the fence over one or two. I definitely agree that we should have an intern, at least. I like the independent study portion of it. I'm just on the fence about whether we should have one or two. Maybe we should have just the senior, without having heard any other requests.
Ms. Leventhal.
Just to give you some information, last year the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Committee did recommend the student in the contract that we did have. I think it is definitely worthwhile, in my view, at this point. Again, not hearing the advisory committee go through its process. But one thing that's is an advantageous reason to me is that our mission in terms of the Open Space Trust Fund money is to fund recreation, open space, and historic preservation. Recreation does get a considerable amount of money, and I think that when we have open space projects, looking to balance it out is probably a good idea. So I'm unfortunately not going to be at the meeting tomorrow night, but we'll get communication.
Rally, Mr. Ryan.
It seems like a terrific idea. It's a great way to engage with the university. It's a great way to get students, energetic students involved. I hope we can figure out a way to do it. And, you know, we fund a lot of projects out of the Open Space Trust Fund. It would be hard for me to imagine that we wouldn't fund this. But, you know, again, until we actually get the whole list, until we actually approve it, we're not able to say, yes, we're certainly going to do it. But if we had it before us today, it seems to me I'd certainly vote to approve it. It's a good idea.
Mr. Brownlee, you want to say anything?
Yeah, just echoing the sentiments of my colleagues. You know, again, want to respect the process. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it's a great idea, but certainly I would defer to the Open Space Trust Fund process to balance out all the different things that they're being presented with. But if it goes through that process and it gets to here, I certainly would be amenable to it. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have an ordinance on final passage.
Mayor, item number 9, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2764-14. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 203 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Property Maintenance. This ordinance will resolve any confusion concerning the requirement to maintain structures and lands within the Township of Maplewood.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this particular ordinance? Seeing no one, we'll close the hearing. Can we get a motion, Mrs. Larrier?
Yes, Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole, and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, according to law.
Second.
Feel okay? You got your space to second tonight? No one stole your space?
Yeah, I know. I was feeling a
You're
little.
okay?
I had to get it in really quickly though
I
because
held back.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Except in this case here, see, I'm first, and I
Oh, there you go.
got my space now. Yes.
Thoughtful.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have another ordinance on final passage.
Yes, item number 10, Mayor. Ordinance on final passage, 2765-14. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 237 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Special Improvement Districts. This ordinance will adopt certain amendments to the design review standards for both the Maplewood Village Special Improvement District and the Springfield Avenue Partnership Special Improvement District as recommended by the respective boards of each Special Improvement District.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, will close the ordinance. Mr. Desiderio?
Mayor, I just want to report to you that this matter was referred to the planning board pursuant to NJSA 4059D26, and I have a report from the secretary of the planning board indicating that a motion was passed, was introduced, seconded, and passed by an affirmative vote of 5-0 with 2 abstentions. So this was reviewed by the planning board and approved.
Great, thank you. Mr. Ryan, can we get a motion?
And we should just indicate that it was Mr. DeLuca and I who abstained since we... Mr. Chair, I move move this ordinance be adopted as a whole, and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Nice way you spread that out. Very nice tonight. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Just one quick question. The time period was suggested. I think it said January 1st to March 30th. Am I thinking of the right ordinance here? For the.
No, it's a different
No.
ordinance.
Was it different? Oh,
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have discussion items. We have 6. We have the first is a hearing on collection of recyclables, which we're going to hold off to the end of the meeting. Second is the 2015 reorganization of Township Committee.
Chair, I think we should reorganize.
Let's do that on January 1st.
Good idea.
I thought I would just, since we don't do it on January 1st anymore, we just do it as a consent. I'll go through the list and make sure everybody's on board here. Mayor DeLuca, Deputy Mayor Leventhal, joint meeting Leventhal. Our 10 subcommittees: Code Enforcement, Chair will be Larrier, members will be Brownlee, DeLuca. Communications, Chair will be Brownlee, members will be Ryan and Larrier. Cultural Affairs, Chair will be Ryan, member will be DeLuca. Economic Development, Chair is DeLuca, members Leventhal, Ryan. Environmental, Chair is Leventhal, member DeLuca. Finance, Chair is DeLuca, member Leventhal, member Brownlee. Planning and Engineering, the Chair is Mr. Ryan, and the members are DeLuca and Leventhal. Public Safety, Chair is Mr. Brownlee, and the members are DeLuca and Larrier. And Public Works, the Chair is Ms. Leventhal, and Mr. Brownlee is the member. And Recreation and Human Services, Mrs. Larrier is the Chair, and Leventhal and Ryan are the members. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Okay. On our liaisons, Affordable Housing is DeLuca, Arts Council is Ryan, Bergdorf Board of Trustees is DeLuca and Ryan. We no longer have a liaison to Citizen Budget Advisory Committee. Correct. Community Coalition on Race, the liaison is Mr. Brownlee, Duran Hedden, Ryan. Environmental Advisory, Leventhal. Essex County Solid Waste Advisory, Leventhal. First Night, Ryan. Historic Preservation, Ryan. Green Team, Leventhal. Holocaust, Leventhal. Local Assistance Board, Larrier. Maplewood Community Garden, Leventhal. Maplewood Drug Alliance, Larrier. Maplewood Village Alliance, DeLuca. Office of Emergency Management, DeLuca, Larrier. Open Space Trust, Leventhal. Rawway River Task Force, Leventhal. Recreation Advisory, Ryan. Springfield Avenue Partnership, DeLuca. Senior Citizens, Larrier. Swimming Pool Advisory, Leventhal. YouthNet, Ryan and Larrier. Is that correct?
I wasn't that this year.
You were not, Larrier? Okay, that's out. One thing I wasn't sure of. Essex County Municipal Council Exchange, Leventhal and Brownlee. Okay. And then there's one more, Essex Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and that's Leventhal. Then the Board of School Estimate, DeLuca, Leventhal, Brownlee, with Ryan as an alternate. Chamber of Commerce, DeLuca. Library Board of Trustees, DeLuca. Planning Board, DeLuca and Ryan. Making a change?
No, I was asking her if she wanted to be the alternate to the Board of School Estimate, and she said she didn't particularly, so.
Okay, is that it? Everybody's okay? You making changes?
No.
No, okay. Okay. I didn't know if you were negotiating or anything here. Okay, so we're all set?
Yes.
Okay.
And we should just say that this is, what's the difference between current year's assignments and next year's assignments?
Two.
Oh.
Two, I think. Larrier is taking senior citizens, and maybe one. I think that's it.
I think that's the only one I remember.
Oh, and Citizen Budget Advisory, we don't have anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay?
Anticipating that question from the press, I figured I'd just ask it and give you the answer.
Well, if they were listening, they would have gotten it.
Let the record reflect the press just rolled her eyes.
Yeah. Home-based business ordinance. We have proposed changes of the Chamber of Commerce. I sent this out to you all in a chart form.
Here it is.
And this was reviewed by the Economic Development Committee, and you see in the third column, this is what the recommendation is from the EDC. Most of it is to keep it the same. The second item here is a home-based business shall be permitted as an accessory use, provided that the use is the employee, the resident is the employee or operator, and then we cut out and no other persons, just to leave that silent. In case somebody needed to bring somebody in or needed to bring a couple people in because they were doing a project that allowed them with the flexibility.
What's happening now if they have to bring in some help?
Well,
suddenly
they
become
break the law.
Okay.
And it's very difficult to enforce. Item number 3, right now, we say there's no manufacturing of goods is permitted. The Chamber suggested no mass manufacturing of goods. We said, no, that doesn't work. But there is a problem here, and maybe, Mr. Desiderio, you could weigh in on whether you think this works. We have people who are crafters, who essentially make stuff in their home. They manufacture in their home. So would it work if we said excluding personalized handmade products? Or does that become a definition issue?
Let me think about it.
Okay.
I understand what you want to do.
Okay.
Let me give it some thought.
Does anybody have any problem with that, trying to have Mr. Desiderio figure that out?
We're talking about crafty things.
Yeah, like a craft, yeah. If somebody, you know, I was thinking here of a quilter, only because it's close to home. If somebody makes quilts and then sells it.
If somebody's a system integrator and is buying personal computers and boards and monitors and putting them together, is that manufacturing and is that objectionable?
See, now you're getting away from crafty.
Right.
But it, you know, I mean, it seems to me
Well, that's covered here.
What do we object to about manufacturing? We object to like the traditional industrial thought of what manufacturing is. Somebody putting a couple of components together, installing software, and shipping a box out.
Well, that's
that manufacturing.
I think that's going to be covered in item number 10. But I have a question about computer repairs, which I think we ought to do that.
Well, couldn't we?
Because there is a definition of manufacturing in the book.
Okay.
So I think the thing we don't want a situation where somebody has a manufacturing machine. You hear, you know,
Right.
type thing. Yes.
Well, well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Aren't we really trying to keep them from setting up one of those
Conveyor belts.
conveyor belt things in their home?
But if somebody had a loom and was in their basement and was doing rugs or weavings, that, you know, and did a bunch of those, that would be.
How does it sound again?
I'm not going to do it. She just did it. Or a sewing machine. I mean, it's just sort of natural. People do that stuff anyway as a hobby.
Yeah.
So it's really more of a hobby business. Yes.
However, I had a complaint of a house where they requested a code visit because there were a number of sewing machines and other quote-unquote manufacturing apparatus.
Well, I think that would be fine, because then you could go in there and, first off, if they're beyond the 15% of any,
25%.
and 25% overall and 15% on any floor, you'd be able to,
And they had a number of people coming in and out.
yeah, and if you had parking issues and things like that. So I think there's other ways to deal with it.
Okay.
All right? And let's go to item number 10, because the Chamber had recommended taking out, right now the language is you cannot repair automobiles, furniture, computers, radios, television, or other mechanical equipment. The Chamber suggested taking out furniture, computer, radios. We thought at the EDC, keep it as it is, but it does get to this question of computers. When people do fix computers in their house, it's, you know, they get a laptop, particularly you're saying, you know, somebody takes the laptop and loads it up with programs and then brings it back to you, or, you know, delivers it to you. So I think that ought to be allowed.
I mean, you talk about computers, radios, televisions, or other mechanical equipment. It's not clear to me that a radio or television is mechanical equipment anymore.
Electronic?
Right. Well, I think the thing is, very few people fix radios and televisions anymore.
True.
So I think it's really just a computer.
But computers and computer integration stuff is, you know, a pretty low-impact kind of thing.
Well, then you would suggest that we remove computer repairs from the prohibition.
I would.
Yeah.
I mean, we should. I think rather than make that suggestion and nickel and dime this, we should ask Roger. He's Mr. Desiderio's looking up stuff about definitions about manufacturing. If there's a straightforward term of art that captures it, then
Right.
let's see if the definition that Mr. Desiderio finds.
Well, let's be
this is
clear, we
on.
don't want repairs of automobiles on the premise.
No.
Right.
And we don't want repairs of furniture on the
Well,
premise,
I have a question about furniture. I mean, how,
as a business.
well, let's say I
Upholster.
reupholster small chairs That's furniture.
I have a chair that needs to be done, by the way.
Right, as a business.
Well, as my home business, I reupholster small chairs, and it only takes up 15% of my first floor.
Right.
Have
You do an
got-
automobile, too.
Has anyone come to you and suggested they want to do that?
No, but no one's actually really come to me and suggested they want to do computers either, but there may be some
But
out there.
actually, people on the chamber board have suggested that computers be, because they do computer work, and they do programming work, so.
So are you suggesting we take this
I'm
as,
simply suggesting that if demands come up or questions come up, you can always revisit.
Right.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I think the computer is just an issue, is that's something people do. It's a low-maintenance thing. I think with furniture, you have deliveries, you have drop-offs, it's just a whole different thing.
Smelly chemicals.
Yes. So what we want on this one is we want some carve-out for computers. Okay?
Now, what's the plan here?
Introduce this January 6th?
Introduce or give you a draft for discussion?
Yeah, let's do the draft.
You know, the thing is, it's a zoning change too, so we're gonna have to.
Yeah, that's the only thing, then it doesn't really matter, we've been living with this for a while, so if it goes to the planning board, it'll go to the planning board in February.
February, yeah.
Then it'll come back, so we'll have to do time there.
Okay.
All right, next one is one you did reference before about the Maplewood
Yes,
Village Alliance.
I was
with
jumping the gun.
Right, with the canvas doors. So this is the situation. We had, I think, 4 businesses last year that put canvas doors in front of their locations. All of them were restaurants, correct, Ms. Fritzen?
correct?
So we instructed them that they're not allowed.
Right.
That's an obstruction. And those of us on the Code Enforcement Committee have talked about obstructions of sidewalk a lot. So when they came in for permits, we told them that they wouldn't be allowed this year. And then the Village Alliance, they went to the Village Alliance and they had a conversation over 2 meetings. And the meeting the other night, the Village Alliance Board made this request to us, that we allow it. And so that's what we have here. I sent the recommendation to Mr. Conklin and Chief Dingelstad at the Fire Department and Mr. Mittermeier at the Building Department, and I got some comments from them, and I think they CC'd most of you. Okay, maybe it was
Mr.
just the Code
Mittermeier's
Enforcement.
comments.
Yeah.
I only got Mr. Mittermeier's comment.
Yeah, Mr. Conklin was talking about changing it to December 1st. Mr. Chief Dingelstad, Mr. Conklin also suggested don't limit it just to food establishment, open it to all businesses. And Chief Dingelstad said that he went out and checked the fire hydrants locations, and there would be nothing would prohibit them from accessing the fire hydrants. So that wasn't an issue. Mr. Mittermeier had more comments about sidewalks should not be obstructed more than 50%. Any other fixtures on the sidewalk should be moved, like planters, benches, so that we could make sure that there wouldn't be any conflict there. And he also sent us some diagrams as to how it should be done to meet the handicap accessibility. So I guess the question is, are we interested in even considering this? And I think we would do it in resolution form to allow it to happen in 2015, with the understanding that if someone put this enclosure up, that they would be responsible to remove the snow. That became a big problem last year, that the enclosures were up, and because we had so much snow that was pushed up against the curb, you couldn't get by, particularly one business in particular. So if we were to do this and we had an agreement that you had to remove the snow, a certain number of feet on either side of the enclosure, we could test it to see if it works and then think about maybe making it permanent in 2016 and beyond.
Are they required to remove the snow in front of their business anyway?
Yeah, but not to, just a 4-foot passage. They don't have to take it off the curb. Remember, we put it on the curb.
Yeah, see that?
Right. Yes.
So I think it's a fine idea to try it. I'd like to offer maybe a simplifying suggestion to this, if I could. You know, we implemented, many years ago, we implemented a thing where we allowed people to have outdoor cafe dining, right? And we put an ordinance in place, and we, you know, charged a fee for inspections, and we decided that we're going to waive the fee, you know, to sort of encourage it and to make it happen. And so, and it turned out that I don't think we ever actually used the fee for the sidewalk ordinance. And maybe this is another flavor of the same thing. Maybe we should make this a little simpler. Say, look, we're going to allow this in 2015. Here's the rules about snow removal. Here's the rules about whatever. And if you violate it, you're going to get cited in some way, and the thing's going to be taken down. But there's no permit process, there's no application, there's no fee. There's just, here's what the rules are. You got to obey them. We're going to be checking to see what those. We're going to check for compliance, and if it works out, we're going to make it permanent. And if you don't comply, you're not going to be allowed to do it.
Question.
Brownlee.
Just one question, and I thought we started to touch on it as well. Right now, the current ordinance, does it say that they have to clear a certain number of feet out from, say, the front door?
It basically just says that they have to clean the sidewalk in front of their premises. I mean, there's a practical aspect to it, obviously, depending on the volume of the snow.
No, I understand.
The other mic, can't hear you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a practical aspect to the problem as to the volume of the snow. Okay, and of course, the issue is, you know, unlike you and me, when we clean our sidewalk, we have space to throw it. There's a limited space where they can put it. We certainly don't want to put it back in the street, so consequently, it's going to get stacked at the curb, so there's no way to stop that.
I guess I just want to make sure we're not putting in place something that is going to be logistically impossible for them to comply with. I don't know if I'm phrasing that right. In other words, exactly what you were talking about. The snow is coming up. We're plowing it up. They need to clear it out. Now 50% of the sidewalk is taken up by this enclosure, and you know, it could be kind of a strange situation. And
they're going to have to be able to figure that out, whether they have
I
to bucket it out or get somebody.
Well, I just want to make sure that we don't, understanding that, but I just don't want to put in place, I didn't mean to talk over you, that we wouldn't put in place something that would, even though they want it, would put an undue burden on them to comply.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the mayor has in mind in terms of setting regulations, but I mean, I think one of the overall regulations will be pedestrian safety.
Right.
And if there's a determination that there's an unsafe condition, then they'll be instructed how to proceed. I think that would be something that would be incorporated into the rules. So that, you know, that would be my suggestion.
Could the enclosure essentially be, could the front, can we effectively treat the front door of the enclosure as the front door of the establishment?
Why would you do that?
I'm just thinking in terms of, you know, in terms of clearing out, you know, again, talking about public safety, if you will.
I see what you're saying.
At least a foot.
I think the difficulty is that in the village, where one restaurant is located, they have a fairly large canvas enclosure, and that's to allow handicap wheelchairs to get in there. It takes up about 50% of the sidewalk. I think what Mr. Mittelmeier's suggestion is that we say you have to have, you know, no more than 50%. In some areas, the sidewalk is so large that doesn't become a problem. You can actually have a snowbank, the canvas thing, and still have plenty to walk by.
Yeah.
So, and this one in particular opens on the side as opposed to on the front. So I'm not exactly sure. I think if we said the end of the canvas can't take up more than 50, can't protrude on the sidewalk more than 50%, and that leaves 50% of the sidewalk.
Again, I'm open. I'm defer to Ms. Leventhal.
I'd just like to, the sidewalks may be a different size, but point out what Montclair has done, which is 1/4 of the width. Come to think of it, their sidewalks are much bigger than ours. So I guess 1/2 is space that's needed. They also, in Montclair, asked that the opening be on the side of the structure.
Right. I facilitated a conversation with Mark Lobauer, our retail consultant, and he suggested also that it be on the side.
Yeah. 'Cause then you're not going out to the
Right.
other half with the width of the door.
Right.
I'd also just like to have us keep in mind traffic safety, which is also pedestrian safety. Because if we're asking our own DPW to pile it up off the curb, then cars are going to be 2 to 3 feet out further into the road. They're not going to be able to pull up to the curb and overlap the curb. So there's going to be, I mean, good 3 feet, actually.
Yeah, I think.
Complicated.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go with Mr. Ryan. Try not to make it too complicated because otherwise we're gonna be talking about this and it's gonna be spring. And I think that what I would suggest is we say to the building department that they're authorized to approve this based on the needs that we have to ensure public safety, pedestrian flow, and then let them work with each individual business to see how that enclosure works based on what the sidewalk width is. And they would have to go case by case, look at each one of them, and then they would determine that if you put this up here, you're gonna have to be responsible to shovel snow, maybe in one case, 10 feet on each side, maybe in another case, 2 feet on each side, just to make sure that there's sufficient passage. And this way, it becomes simple. We leave it to the building department to work with the merchant, and we see if that can work.
Regarding the chief's recommendation that we open it up to more than just the eateries, that seems to me to be potentially a lot of things. I don't know that I would be in favor.
Yeah, I think the reality, I mean, there's a reality here, and I guess we have to ask Mr. Desiderio, can we just limit it to restaurants? I think we probably can. In the special improvement district, we have a lot of leeway, right?
You have more leeway. I'd like to, I mean, I'm not really sure there's a rational basis to do that,
Right.
but we'd have to think about that one a little
Yeah.
bit,
I think if a store wanted to put it up, it's not an inexpensive proposition. It's pretty expensive to do this, and I understand with the restaurant, because you have people sitting there, and every time that door opens, you get that wind that comes in, the cold. In the store, you don't really get that, because people are moving and
True, but I think
sitting
That was
there,
my
they're walking
rationale.
around with their coats on and stuff.
But
It's-
I'm sorry, but I think part of the rationale, if I remember correctly in reading it, was, again, saving on heating costs and things like that as well. To your point, it may be an expensive thing, but obviously they've done the cost-benefit analysis and felt that
Yeah.
it would still be beneficial to, if they could. They were restaurants talking, but I imagine it would apply to other types of businesses as well.
It might. I mean, and maybe we ought to leave it open, and if we get this, again, we can, as long as they're meeting if the toy store wanted to put this out there and it met the criteria.
Yeah.
I mean, if we use 2015 as a learning year and just leave it, as a resolution, and then work with the Village Alliance and the merchants to figure out something to go beyond. We don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage when people say, I don't want to eat at these stores in the village because they're old and they have these doors that open and I don't want to sit there for it. That doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to say that let whoever wants to do it as long as they obey the rules, and if somebody decides that it's worth their while, by all means. The only other thing I was going to suggest, if I could, is your memo, or maybe it was the MVA's memo, has suggested allowing it from January 1st to March 30th, right? Or the end of March.
30th.
Well, why don't you allow it in, suppose there's like a cold snap in April. Allow it for 4 months. It's unlikely to be cold enough to worry about this in May.
Well, why don't we, since they're asking for why don't we honor what they're asking for this go around, and then we can use it as use it.
Sure, okay, that's fine.
Let's see if we could do this. If we pass a motion tonight to authorize the building department to allow these based on standards that they set that meet the public safety, pedestrian needs.
Well, then I think they have to report back to you, and we can put this into a formal resolution on January 6th. But I think we need to get something back from Mr. Mittermeier.
Okay. Why don't we do that? Why don't we, I guess I was just trying to see if we could farm it out to him, and just
No,
to
I
say
think-
we're allowing it. under conditions.
I'm really not comfortable with that. I think that it really needs to come back to you, because I think you need to know, because you're going to get the complaints and you're going to get the questions, and I think you have to be comfortable with what he's suggesting. That's my recommendation.
Okay, so let's do this, because then the Village Alliance can sit down with him and work out all this stuff. If we get a sense of the Township Committee to authorize Mr. Mittermeier to work out a process that he can present to us before January 6th. And then we can pass the resolution at that time.
If we get a resolution that everybody's happy with, and we have that resolution, we can put it on the consent agenda for the 1st, if you want.
No, we won't have a chance to talk about it.
Okay.
So we can talk about it and pass that resolution that night, because it's just a resolution, 2015, on the 6th.
Is it our place to weigh in on whether it should be for all businesses or just restaurants?
I think Mr. Desiderio is suggesting we might want to make it the first year all restaurants, all businesses, and see what happens.
Yeah, I would prefer it to be all businesses.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Okay. Mr. Manning, can you follow up with Mr. Mittermeier? Okay. Okay with this? All right. Item number 4 is the post office redevelopment. Okay, this is a little more complicated and difficult. You all hopefully received the new renderings, and then there was one rendering, and number 4 was a picture of the old rendering and the new rendering, so you get to see the difference there. So essentially, in the changes that we would propose making in the redevelopment plan are actually now 4, and I'll get to the 4th one in a moment. The first, and these are, the reason, just a frequently asked question, why are you making changes and just don't have the planning board do a variance, is that the developer, in order to go out and get financing, and in order to get letters of intent from commercial businesses, needs to have some certainty that this is going to happen. And leaving it up to whether or not the planning board wants to carve out a variance is just not going to move this process forward. So what we want to do is to have a plan that makes it possible for the developer to move forward. So the first change is the building height. We now have 45 feet. The developer has come back and says, look, the reality is, in order to do 4 stories, you need what I've put down here, 15 feet for your commercial space to allow a 12-foot interior ceiling with 3 feet of structural items above that. And then each floor, you need 10.6. You need to, and he says that with the rents that they're going to be charging nowadays, everybody wants a 9-foot ceiling. They don't want 8-foot ceilings. So that brings the total up to 52 feet and 9 inches, which is 7 feet and 9 inches above what we have in the current plan. This was looked at by the Design Review Committee of the Maplewood Village Alliance, and there was a vote 8 in favor of allowing up to 53 feet, none opposed, and 1 abstained. This would still mean that there'd be 2 stories along Maplewood Avenue and along Rickleton Square. That was a very important thing. The developer had come back and suggested 3, and we told him no, it had to be 2. He is talking about the possibility of lowering the parapet on the very top from 3.5 feet to 2 feet. I'm sorry, 2.5 feet, which would reduce the total building by 2 feet. But what we're asking here is, oh, and I'm sorry, and then the other thing is in this new design, you see on the corner here this thing here, this fancy little 3rd-story type thing, and that would have to be allowed because right now it can only be 2 stories, and the Village Alliance Design Review Committee felt that an architectural feature like this should be allowed to go up It's really not a third story, but there would be 3 stories on that particular corner.
That's the only corner of the,
That's the only one that's proposed. So that's the change number 1 around building height. It's allow 53 feet and to allow the architectural feature on the northwest corner. The setbacks is another change, and the setbacks, there's no reason the Maplewood Avenue setback is met. It needs 23 feet, and it's 28 feet, so that's not a problem. It's the 3rd and 4th floor. It's only set back 21, and it needs to be set back 23, so it fails by 2 feet. And what we're proposing is that the redevelopment plans say that the 3rd and 4th floor have to be set back 10 feet from the 2-story building wall, which would allow that 21 feet to take place. And then along the Village Coffee, you're allowed to have 3 stories or 40 feet of building, and any portion above it has to be set back 2 feet. There's no problem with the 3rd story, which is set back 10 feet, and that's not a problem. The 4th story would be set back 20 feet, and that's 6 feet less than the 26 feet that's required. So we need to change the setback on Rickleton Square to require the 3rd and 4th floors to be set back 10 feet from the 2-story building wall, and on the south facade require the 4th floor to be set back 20 feet from the building wall. Change 3 is affordable housing. We now say that the plan has to have 10% of the units affordable on site, and we've agreed to, with the developer, that because our COA requirement, our affordable housing requirement is 91 rehabilitation units, that we would agree to take a $100,000 payment to our Maplewood Affordable Housing Rehabilitation Program as a substitute for the 2 on-site units. And change 4 is something that came up with Roger after. We are actually cutting out one of the lots. They're not going to be using the Village Coffee lot. That's in the plan right now. That's not going to be used. So we think just to clean it up, we ought to take it out of the plan because it's not going to be in the redevelopment. And then that leaves 2 additional lots, which we want language in there that says at a future time, those lots will be consolidated into 1 lot as opposed to 2 lots. And there'll be a subdivision of a very small strip that will revert back to the township.
That's that strip in the back that runs
Yeah.
On the
but
track.
that's been in the
Yeah,
plan all
tracks.
along, hasn't it?
Tracks, right.
Okay.
That's been,
No, I don't think the plan calls for.
no, and I thought that, we thought that that was what was going to happen all along, that we were going to subdivide out the back and revert it to the town. But if it wasn't, it's perfectly fine, it seems.
So that is where we're at, and the Village Alliance Design Review Committee is in support of these plans. There's still a lot more work to do with the Design Review Committee and around some of the design on the south side, which is the Village Coffee, and in the rear, that still has to be talked about as some of the materials. So that process will continue, but these major changes to the design, to the plan would need to be done by the Township Committee. The way it would work is we would introduce it as an ordinance. It would go to the Planning Board to have a hearing there. They would then give us their comments, and then we would have a hearing here on the second reading of the ordinance. Yes.
Just a process question. I understand the overall objective in terms of giving the developer the certainty, because obviously if they leave it to a subsequent process, then at the point they go out, there's uncertainty. But just from a process standpoint, just understanding the wording, just my edification, if we didn't do this, they would need to go for a quote-unquote a variance. That's what I heard you say. So by doing, if in fact we do this, what is it because it's a redevelopment? We have the leeway within that to effectively define the zone, if you would?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So I just want to clarify my...
That's exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
You are setting the zoning for that project.
It's a rehabilitation area, but yes, it's the same, we have the right.
In layman's terms, if
Yes.
you would. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So I'm sorry, Mayor.
So, yes, go ahead.
So what you're suggesting is that we're going to introduce an ordinance to amend the redevelopment plan, refer it to the planning board, and then have a hearing on it on final, and you're thinking that that will be all accomplished in January?
I would hope so.
Right, okay.
Essentially, if we were tonight to agree to move forward with these changes, then we would employ our planner, Mr. Greigel, to make these changes and put them into ordinance form with Mr. Desiderio. And they would come back. I might just say one other thing is that I believe now, and I meant to call our planning board attorney today, but didn't get a chance. The planning board has the right to allow a 10% increase of the height as it is, and 10% more for the stuff on the roof. Is that correct, or?
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding. So, essentially, they could, with a 45-foot, they could allow through a variance for it to go up to 49 and a half. 49 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would suggest is if we were to move forward on the 53, that we would make a maximum and not allow the planning board to increase it any more than 53. Which is what we did with the station house across the street. We said it can be 50 feet maximum. And the planning board has no discretion to increase that number.
Okay, so in this case here, we would be setting a maximum. It would not be with that same 10% discretion.
Correct.
Doesn't seem unreasonable.
So let's see, let's just leave this. Now, I think I've presented it, so let's see if we get some comments, feedback. Yes, Mr. Leventhal.
I'd like to just mention something from the Planning and Engineering Subcommittee, which is where I learned, I mean, it's sort of obvious, but it never occurred to me that it's very hard to rearrange the interior design because of things like elevators, sewer piping, freshwater piping, etc. And once that sunk in, I realized what a difficult task they had to achieve a profit, but also to keep this, to be able to do it with the elevator and the sewer, for example. Mm-hmm. So that was something that affected my reaction to their presentation and to how our redevelopment plan is written. In terms of what we have presented to us tonight, I think using the both professional expertise and the business expertise of the folks on the Maplewood Village Alliance, specifically the design committee, was a very valuable process in this particular project. And I think from everything I've heard, they've been very thoughtful, and I find them agreeing with what the redeveloper is suggesting. So that carries a lot of weight for me, and I do want to see this project move ahead and be successful. So I'm okay with these suggestions.
Else?
I think the only, all of the plan, with the exception of one that still doesn't set right with me, and just because it never does, it probably never will, and that would be the loss of the affordable housing units. And I understand the benefit to getting the money for our fund. I do feel uncomfortable with there being no affordable housing units in this project. However, I would say the rest of the changes seem very expedient to me, and I understand, and as Ms. Leventhal explained, once you see how everything has to line up inside, regardless of what it looks like outside, that was very telling.
Anyone else?
I think your suggestions are reasonable, and I think we should proceed as you suggest.
Okay. I think what we ought to do is get a motion to,
To Mr. Greigel?
engage our planner to move forward with the proposed changes that were outlined in the memo here December 15th.
With the addition of the proviso that you added at the
Right.
end of your discussion about limitations on the height, and with that addition, I would move that.
Second.
Any discussion further? Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
I would say yes, with just my objection to the affordable housing units being part of the record.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is the report from the Code Enforcement Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Code Enforcement Committee met last week, and we had lots of discussion about a lot of things. For starters, the temporary basketball hoops that we had discussion about several months ago, we came to the conclusion that it's time for them to come down. So as a result, we will be citing temporary basketball hoops after January 1st. They should come down. The Code Committee will be looking at the ordinance as a whole with regard to sports equipment in the right-of-way being another discussion that we had. But for now, the decision was made, and I would like to put it to the Township Committee, that after January 1st, they must come down until the spring, by which time we should have had time to discuss this item at more length. Additionally, we talked about redoing the language regarding right-of-ways. It's difficult to know what a right-of-way is if you don't know what a right-of-way is. So, in fact, our mayor came up with several terms, including berm, which I never heard of that word until he found it, which means that little grassy strip. So we will be looking to have that language in our ordinance revised. We would also like to suggest that all signs in the berm or wherever or whatever we call it would be prohibited, period. And we want to put that, and please correct me if I'm confused, but we want to put that language in the ordinance regarding signs, because I don't believe it's there now. So we would need to put that in. And I think that pretty much covers what we discussed, with the exception of what we are going to call that little grassy strip.
Just one addition. We did get a recommendation from our DPW to have the basketball hoops removed because of snow removal. They became a problem. Either you had to move away because they were hanging out and you were afraid the truck was going to hit it, or you didn't want the snow to knock it over or fall into the street. So we thought just for safety reasons, just to have them all removed, and then hopefully we will address this before the spring when they're possibly going to come back out.
And they're under no circumstances should be permanent.
Right. There is a permanent
items.
one.
There is one that is permanent, that someone cemented into the ground, that will come up. There's no provision whatsoever, even in the spring or summer, for an item like that. Did we want to discuss also the change in the apartment registrations also? It was brought up by our building department that we should allow the state to register and inspect the apartments that have a COS, what's it called? Certificate of occupancy, after 2011, correct? Was it 2011?
Yes.
Yes. all apartments, rather than have us do it every 2 years, the state does it automatically every 5 years. So for some term, I believe we decided one term or 2 terms? I thought it was 2 terms.
2 5-year terms.
2 5-year terms. We will let the state do it and we won't do it. So whatever we need to do to make that legal, we need to do.
I think Mr. Guerrero wants to say
It's for
something.
units with 4 housing units or more.
Right.
Thank you.
For units with 4 housing units or more. That's what you said.
I'd like to know about the rationale for this. I mean, I know a new unit in 2011, in 10 years from now, will be 13 years old.
Part of the rationale is that we're having difficulty doing, making the rounds in the apartments of 4 and below already. We're having difficulty getting to them every 2 years. These are relatively new apartments. It's not likely that in the next 5 to 10 years that they're going to have issues. However, one of the provisions that we did say we do want to incorporate is if for some reason, when the state comes in, they find an issue, then it reverts back to every 2 years.
When I had sat on the code committee, I had understood that the state didn't really come in.
We were told they did.
I was told, right, okay.
They do about 85% of the houses, and then of the unit. That's what they said. 85. I think it was 85%.
Something like that.
And then do it the next year. Keep doing it.
What we were told is that they don't always report on their findings. And so we would have to instruct the building department to make sure that they know what's found.
If
So
they
that
do
we're not-
something and don't report on the findings, then what the heck is the point of them doing it? Why in the world would they do something and not report
Well, they
on the
report
findings?
on the findings to the building owner. There's a card that's issued,
Right.
okay? And it's got to be, I think it's green in color.
Right.
And basically, they have to post that card with regard to the inspection of the building. And it's done every 5 years. It could be 5 years and 3 months, it could be 5
Right.
years and 3 months, it could be 5 years and 6 months, okay? But it's done with some degree of frequency, and it's done basically because they want to make sure these buildings are safe and nobody gets hurt in them. Yeah, the answer is, the findings are certainly reported to the landlords, and if there are violations, the landlords have to repair those violations. Now, can our town go in and ask for a copy of that green card to see if the state was there? I would imagine they can. But I don't know that there is a reporting system. Generally speaking, you don't have a superior entity reporting to a junior entity.
Correct.
So
That's
as a
what Mr.
general
Mittermeier
rule-
was saying. There's no automatic. So what would have to happen is that our people would have to have some kind of process of going to check these inspections. If there's a violation, then the 5-year plan gets dropped and you
Good.
get inspected every 2
That
years.
was my next question, okay. All right, or if there's a complaint,
Right,
they would go in.
correct.
But it's not a
Okay.
violation of our, is it a violation of our code? It's a violation of the state
It's whatever
regulation?
the
State and
multifamily house.
The other thing is, I thought we did not go in when there were 3 units or less.
Thought it was 4.
No, we do. We do.
We do.
Yep.
Why we
do.
put that in place in the first,
It's 1 unit or less, I think.
1 unit or less?
Less?
Well, you never know.
Less than 1 unit is very quick to inspect.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine so.
All right, so we will get the violations or non-violation statement every 5 years or so from the state.
No, we will not get it. We
we'll
will
have to ask for
we'll have to inquire about it or get it from the landlord or look at it whenever it gets posted.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We're going to state that we want this. So
But it's
we
not
will-
going to proactively come to us.
We will have,
I'm not exactly sure how it's going to happen, but somehow we're going to get information after the inspection. Whether we go out and get the information, I don't think we can force the state, as Roger said, Mr. Desidero said, we can't get this state to force them to give it to us. So we'll have to figure out a way to get that. This is still going to be discussed and has to come back in an ordinance form.
okay.
So we
All
got
right,
some more
thank you.
time.
Okay.
But we wanted to get a sense if that was a direction that we felt comfortable moving in, because we just can't, Mr. Mittermeier just can't, his crew cannot get to all the apartments. We're building too many apartments for him to be able to do it with the personnel he has, and it would be better to focus on some of the other 2 and 3 families where we are having some other problems too.
Well, we had already put off on the new construction, I remember that, but, okay.
Yes.
All right, I'll think more about it. Thank you.
And you wanted to mention who we use, the lawn signs? We're thinking of this 45-day window?
Oh, yes, we did. Did we want to
lawn
mention that?
signs?
Okay. Yes, we were thinking of, you'll remember that we had Who We Use come in here, and the little teardrop blue lawn signs. And they asked us to look at our ordinance regarding lawn signs because they are not your typical traditional crafts businessmen on the lawn. They wanted to have their lawn signs wherever they wanted. What we came up with for your consideration is rewriting the rules for the lawn signs to say that if you have a lawn sign for an event, you must have a date or some indication as to when the event takes place. For instance, rent party this Friday, or Maplewood Loves Wellness from X date to X date, and then once that event is over, your lawn sign must come down. But for events, there must be some indication so that it's just not up there indefinitely. As far as businesses such as Who We Use, we thought perhaps in order to give them their ability to advertise or have their free speech, we would have, I don't recall if it was I think it was once a year, a 45-day period where they can put their lawn signs out however they want. Now, keeping in mind that that would also require us to allow any home-based business to do the same. But it would be a 45-day period, I think, with a permit. And once that 45-day period is over, they must come down. Otherwise, they have to be doing work, according to the ordinance, doing work on the premises. And I'm getting this look from Roger that says,
Yeah, so this is still in the discussion phase. We're still talking about it, and I was asked to go to the chamber board, and I did, and we talked about it there, and there was a suggestion there is why don't you just regulate all signs to be 45 days, a maximum. So even if they're doing work there, and I think that's something we have to check to see if that's permitted. We can, you can regulate commercial speech. So I think there's more conversation to be had about this, but we are trying to figure out, it's difficult as we get into the computer age. How do you figure out these different kinds of businesses that are just come about, that, they're not necessarily bricks and mortar, and so we're just trying to figure it out. And one idea was to regulate the signs and see if we can do that. And, even my signs, when I put my signs out for my campaign, I think they were out for 50 days.
Well,
I would point out.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying that,
Those are your signs, because they're political speech.
Right.
No, I understand.
Well, I want to make sure the public
Well, there's commercial speech too, and there's political speech. And people can put political signs out, and they can put, no dam out there for as long as they want. But we're talking about commercial. I think, it's a reasonable period of time. And we might want to just think about all signs being out for that.
I mean, I think you want to have if you're still having the conversation, I think you want to draw a distinction between, I had somebody painting my house, and they put the sign up while they were painting and had it up for about a week after, and somebody who's just generally, I think Kathy Leventhal's home loom business is wonderful. Why should somebody get free advertising that they would otherwise have to pay for?
How do you make the distinction between the person who's painting on your house and if you're using,
the person who's painting at my house is painting at my house and is doing business at my house. The trucks come, they're doing the work, and you can circumscribe that. Why should I be allowed to advertise for my neighbor's business?
Well, if you're using your neighbor's business, just like you're using, that's the dilemma. If you're using the painter, and
Painter comes to my house and does work at my house.
I understand that. You don't have to say it again. But if you're using the painter, and if you're using an app, what is the difference? Except there's physical presence of the painter.
I think that is the difference. That's a big difference.
Right, and that's what we're being asked to think about, and that's what we're trying to think about. Is there a difference? There may ultimately be a difference, and we decide not to do anything with it. But, you know, this is something that's been raised, and it's just you know, we're in the computer age, and we have to think about whether or not it makes sense to change what we're doing, and it may not. At the end, we may decide not to, but that's just what we're kicking around.
I mean, I don't mean to sound critical. I'm all for discussing this, and I'm glad you guys are trying to bring this stuff forward. I'd like to see a little more detailed stuff in writing before I know if I'm in favor of it or not.
No, I understand. We're not asking anybody to say if they're favor or against it.
Right.
This was just really just to put it on the table, let you know. This is a report from the Code Enforcement Committee.
Okay.
Let you know what they're talking about.
Is there any way to check what other cities or small towns may have done?
Yeah. I mean, there's some ways we could try to Google some stuff and see what, you know, I don't know if the league has anything, but we could try.
First ones to check with, yeah.
I think we're not close to coming up with
Yeah, no, this is a tough one.
recommendations yet.
I felt that during the presentation.
So we just want to let you know what's happening, because there's a bunch of these things. Some of them are time sensitive, like the basketball courts.
Right.
We're pretty clear about the signs in that grass strip between the sidewalk and the curb. We don't want anything in there. Even the ones that say, drive like your children live here, your kids live here. They need to be on the other side of the sidewalk.
I feel like our recommendations regarding event signs is pretty straightforward.
But we need to put it in an ordinance form, though.
Right.
And then bring it back here, and that's where we are now. That's where we got to work on that and come up with some, you know, talk about what the definition is and all that kind of stuff.
I wonder about political signs that are still out from the campaign, though.
Not mine.
Yours.
Where?
Bergdorf.
I took it Saturday.
Okay.
It's not there anymore. I saw it and took it. I saw it and took it. It was in the back of
Somewhere.
somewhere.
This isn't true confession.
And why didn't you take it if you saw it?
I was in my car.
All right. So we'll bring this back, and I think what we ought to do is maybe have Mr. Desiderio come to the next code meeting so that we can talk about some of the specifics around the sign ordinance.
I think it'd be helpful. It'd be easier for me to work and get it from there. So.
Yeah. It's a riveting meeting.
I'm sure.
At 7:30 in the morning.
I don't mind those.
Yeah. Okay. That concludes our discussion items. Let's go to the consent agenda. We're going to pull 22714. That's the contract for the curbside collection. We're going to have the hearing first. And then there was Mr. Desiderio, there's a question on 23814.
Yeah, and that is a Mr. Ceridian, Jeff Ceridian is the township's redevelopment counsel.
Close.
And Mr. Ceridian is concerned about what's going on with COA, and he's recommended a resolution to specifically address the issue that the township has, in fact, had its third round approvals, and that the township remains ready, willing, and able to comply with affordable housing requirements, et cetera. So it's really at his recommendation that we do this. I will tell you that his recommendations in the past, he's been counsel to the township for many years, has always been on target, so I too recommend that you approve that resolution.
You have a question?
No. I didn't understand what it was. So.
It's if I had to categorize it, I'd say it's a belts and suspenders resolution that he just wants to have passed, so that if in fact there are any issues that come forward and there's any issues with regard to builders' remedy suits, we can say that we have that resolution in place.
Thank you.
Any other questions on any of the items in the consent agenda? Mr. Desiderio, we're doing this other resolution separate when you do your report, this 239?
PSE&G?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we get a motion on the consent agenda with the removal of 22714?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay. Anybody here for a public comment? No one's here. Okay. Reports from departments. We have the financial office tax sale. Mr. Manning, your report?
Yes, I have one item, and that is the the Township Committee departmental budget hearings. I circulated, based on your desire, though, at the last time we discussed this, a 2-day, Saturday the 10th of January and Saturday the 31st. For our department heads. Now that leaves Maplewood Village Alliance, Springfield Avenue Partnership, YouthNet, kind of out of that. We could expand it. We can go a little later if you wanted to do it, but I thought that they come to us, particularly Maplewood Village Alliance, they have to come to us with their budget, etc. You have to have a hearing, then they got to come back, and we will know what they're asking for, but typically we've been in a pattern of holding it at a certain rate. So I didn't feel that that was so critical that they had to show up on a Saturday and extend our thanks.
What if we were to go to 3 o'clock each day and just include those three? We just have them there.
It's fine. Do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to feed. Everybody's going to get fed it.
At that point, we've committed a good chunk of the day anyway.
Right.
What's an extra half hour?
Okay.
I
All right, so let's...
have no problem.
You know what?
We'll incorporate them.
Let's do the Alliance and the partnership on one day and YouthNet, and then let's just start talking about capital on the second day, and we'll just hold revenues off.
Okay, and
So let's do the Alliance and the partnership on the 10th, and YouthNet and capital on the 31st.
31st. I'll circulate a revised.
Okay?
Okay, and that was it, unless there are questions.
Okay? Great. Unless you want to start at 7:30 and get out of here earlier. No, I didn't think so.
Hey, you know.
Okay, Mr. Desiderio.
I just have one item, Mayor. As you suggested before, late this afternoon, I got a request from the redeveloper of the PSE&G site for an extension of the exclusive negotiating period. Presently, it's scheduled to expire on January the 7th. They've asked for a 60-day extension. They are in the process of actively negotiating the redevelopment agreement and the financial agreement with the township's redevelopment council. So they have asked for a 60-day extension, and I have put that into resolution 239-14. I apologize it didn't get to the agenda, but we got it late this afternoon, and I thought it was important rather than let it carry to January the 6th. This way there's some certainty as to what's going on. So I would therefore ask that you pass Resolution 239-14, which is a resolution to extend the period of negotiation with Maplewood Urban Renewal LLC for the PSE&G site through March the 7th, 2015.
Your motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Fritzen?
Okay, I have a couple things. The next time we'll be meeting in this room will be on New Year's Day for the Township's annual reorganization meeting. We start at 12 o'clock, noon sharp. Township Committee will meet beforehand to go over the agenda at 11:30. Send out invitations to honorable guests, board and committee members, neighboring elected officials, the usual. And I think we're almost there with our agenda, and it should be a great day. If you have meeting dates for 2015 and you know them anytime for your talk to the Township Committee, office hours, the committees that you are the liaison to, all of that, I'd begin to take it as you have it. We began selling parking permits, jitney, and merchant, and overnight, and all special lot overnight parking this week. Open until 7 o'clock tonight, and then we have a special Parking permit night this Friday until 8 o'clock. We'll be open straight through from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And everyone that had a parking permit in 2014 received a letter to that effect. And that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciated being here for 35 years. Thank you.
We appreciate you being here. You must have started as what, a Girl Scout when you were 15 or something
It's
like
my
that?
first job. You can all do the math.
Mr. Brownlee?
Just one question. You said you have started selling the jitney passes, parking passes, et cetera. There's usually a grace period. Obviously, we encourage people to do it, purchase sooner, but the grace period, do you know off the top of your head, when does it extend to?
The grace period, I usually say 3 weeks. It'll probably end up being 4.
Okay.
We get that. If you bought a 2015 this week, you can use it right away. But again, the grace period is usually at least through the second late night, which is the 3rd week in January.
Okay.
And I've been known to move it to the following Monday, which makes it almost 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Great. Let's see if we have some quick reports. Mr. Brownlee?
Actually, one I probably should have asked during the administrative report, because it's actually it goes from there. Our friends across from the police station, they were going to have I think the word they used was a sealed box or sealed whatever.
Buttoned up.
What's that?
Buttoned up.
Yeah, well, I heard sealed whatever. Can we ascertain whether or not they're on schedule? I know they're not here to report on that.
I spoke to the attorney today.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I spoke to the attorney, and let's see, what are the brickwork, masonry work, is being done on the rear of the building, and the delay has been of a PSE&G pole in front of the building. They have, PSE&G has been out to the site. The estimate is $28,000 to move that pole, and they are in the process now of getting that paid to PSE&G to move that pole. They cannot do any work on the front of the building, the Springfield Avenue portion of the building, until that pole is removed. I asked for a PSE&G work number. I didn't get that yet. Once I get that, I will call our representative at PSE&G to see if we can move that along. And but the back brickwork has been done. The roof has been done, I believe, and the windows have been put in. And until they can get to that front, the Springfield Avenue front, they have to go at a slower pace.
So, question, I understand that there are various and sundry reasons why there are different delays. The performance bond on this is through the end of June? What's that? Right, but there was an actual date on that.
Yeah,
I think
don't
it was
know.
June or
I have to go back and look. I'm not sure we have a performance bond on the building. We have a performance bond on the public areas. Okay, this is a private development, so I'd have to go back and look, but I don't know that we have a performance bond on the project.
I thought we did on this. Didn't we?
It still has I don't know. There's no performance bond on the completion. The only recourse is to decertify him as the developer.
That was not my recollection. My recollection was that we get $1 million if something's
I remember
not
that
done
distinctly
by a
as
certain
well.
date.
Yeah, no, you're laughing, but I have a distinct
we don't.
recollection.
We
There was a
don't.
drop dead date in the middle of next year to the effect of $1 million. Yes, I do recall that.
No, there may be penalties, but I don't think there's any bond.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back and
Please, let's go back.
I'll go back and look. Absolutely.
Thank you.
There was a date at which they would turn it over to us.
No, that $1 million figure, I don't think we're both dreaming that.
Respect. It's going to be very difficult to have them forfeit the building to the township.
Right.
Okay? I mean, they have, any judge who listens to them and they say they're having a legitimate issue with PSE&G about moving a pole is going to say they're going to get more time. I mean, that's just an
Fine, but there
absolute
still
fact.
is a date, which they may get an extension on, but there is some date that I recall. I have the same recollection as Ms. Larrier.
Disputing it. I know what they said that day when they came in there, and
Right.
they used buttoned up, but I'm just suggesting to you
No, I'm not
that
talking about the buttoning up for the end of this year.
remedy is what the mayor is doing, and that is to keep their feet to the fire. I think that's the best you're going to do.
I recall when we were having this discussion, not talking about buttoning up by the end of the year, or as you used the term, a sealed box, that one of the, again, sort of evaluation criteria I recall specifically was that there was some sort of, and I may be misusing the term, performance bond or something to that effect, where there was a date in the middle of next year by which the project needed to be complete. And if not by that date, then we get $1 million. They're just saying it in layman's terms. And I don't think...
That is absolutely, positively not true. Okay?
I'm going to go back and listen to the
With all
tape.
due respect, there may be a completion date, but there's not going to be a forfeiture of $1 million to the township.
Right.
That's just not so, Mr.
Are we
President.
dreaming something?
Maybe, but I was not here.
That's right. You were
That's
not
right.
here.
I
It was
was
just
not
the
here.
three
You
of us,
dreamed.
I
right?
was
It
not
was
here.
just
I wasn't
three of
here.
us. So, look,
We'll check it out.
yeah, if you could circulate that information to us. I hope to get the work order number and to put some pressure on PSE&G and try to get this going. They have been, the windows are in, so that, that sealed, has been sealed, but they need to do that masonry before they can go in and do the inside. I think it's fair to say that we'll probably not designate them as a developer anymore, but
That's a different issue.
yeah,
right?
that's going forward. Okay, so do you have any discussion on it? Anything you want to announce, report?
No.
You just want your $1 million?
You
take-
everybody's looking at me
he'll
like
take
I'm
100,000.
crazy or something, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
In all fairness, he has mentioned that $1 million every time
Well,
this conversation has come up.
If you're right, that would be a welcome surprise.
I just dreamed it, I guess.
I think if you're right, then we did a great job negotiating that contract.
I'm
because-
okay. I
that would be
just
something.
made it up out of my head.
Okay, Ms. Leventhal.
I would just like to remind Mr. Desiderio, Ms. Fritzen, that we need a resolution for January 6th appointing Mr. Bell to be the voting member on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Got it.
Thank you. Yeah, it has to be a resolution. I know that's different, but that's why I brought it up. Okay, and just to wish my colleagues and our staff, community, very happy holidays.
Mr. Ryan?
I have no report.
Ms. Larrier?
Only to say that the notices for dog and cat licenses have gone out, and for domesticated dog and cat licenses have gone out, and you can come in anytime and get your dog and cat license. And also, I would like to wish everyone a wonderful holiday, and I look forward to seeing everyone on January 1st.
Okay, thank you. And just a couple things. The Hilton Neighborhood Association is having their annual family holiday party on Thursday night, 7:30 over at DeHart, 120 Burnett Avenue. And the Village Alliance and the Springfield Avenue Partnership had some great holiday activities since our last meeting. I just want to compliment them for their work, and also the Department of Recreation. It was a great swinging time up on the avenue on the 7th. And I too want to wish everyone a great holiday season here. So we will see everybody on January 1st. We are not leaving though, because we will be having a hearing on a proposed resolution to authorize, to award a contract for recycling collection. Mr. Desiderio, can you give us a report on the bids that we received?
I can, your Mayor.
Just talking to the mic as loud as you
will.
can, because it's hard to hear you. Good.
Members of the Township Committee, the Township solicited bids for the curbside collection of recyclables for 2015, and those bids were received on November the 25th, 2014. There were 4 bids received. Bella Cleaning and Carting LLC, $198,240. Gator Recycling Inc., $243,400. F. Basso Jr. Rubbish Removal Inc., $299,500. And Suburban Disposal Inc., $507,000. On its face, the bid of Bella Cleaning and Carting was the low bidder. About a week ago, I received at my office a letter from the law firm of Trenk de Pasquale on behalf of Gator Recycling Inc., objecting to the award of contract to Bella Cleaning and Carting. They raised essentially an issue of statutory compliance. There is a statutory provision, NJSA 40A 1123.2, which states in part, bear with me a second, when required by the bid plans and specifications, the following requirements shall be considered mandatory items to be submitted at the time specified by the contracting unit for the receipt of the bids. Failure to submit any one of the mandatory items shall be deemed a fatal defect and shall render the bid proposal unresponsive, and that cannot be cured by the governing body. And the specific item is E, document provided by the contracting agent in the bid plan specifications or bid proposal documents for the bidder to acknowledge the bidder's receipt of any notice or revisions or addenda to the advertisement or bid documents. In this particular instance, there was an issue with regard to the bid return date, it being originally put out, and I apologize because I don't have it in front of me. It was either Monday the 25th, and it should have been Tuesday the 25th. I believe that's right, Mr. Fisher? Is that right?
Right.
Okay. To that end, it was noticed, and an addenda was put out by the administrator's office correcting that date to the 25th. Mr. Trenk's office raised an objection on the basis of that, that was a non-waivable item. I should go back. The bid submitted by Bella Cleaning and Carting, although the form is returned, is checked off that no addenda were received with regard to it. Mr. Trenk's office has raised an issue with regard to that. Subsequently, Mr. Rob, R-A-A-B-E, from Bella, sent a letter which I forwarded to you, stating his position with regard to that. Subsequently, I guess yesterday, Bella Cleaning and Carting retained counsel, Mr. Ambrosio, of the firm of Ambrosio and Tomsic. We received a letter late this afternoon, which you do not have the benefit of. I received it about 4:30 this afternoon, and I will let him address that to you. He has raised his defenses in that letter, and since both counsel are here, and we're going to have a hearing, I thought that he could raise those issues to you directly.
So we have all the other material except for that letter, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, and a case that a legal case that Mr. Trenk's office got to me also late this afternoon, but all the other documents you have. All right? So what I suggest, absent some objection, is that since Mr. Trenk represents the objector, and he is the one who raised the issue, that he come forward and address you. We then have Mr. Ambrosio come up, respond to that, and then that each of them have one more opportunity to address you with regard to it. And then I'd ask that you deliberate on this and make a determination. We do have a date of January 5th to start the contract. This is the first year we're going to go to weekly recyclable pickup, and I think it's important that this thing get awarded tonight. So that's
just to be clear, based on the information that you have, that you had a meeting with Mr. Manning, Mr. Correa, Mr. Bell, Calvin Bell, our DPW director, and yourself, and you reviewed all the documents, and it is your collective recommendation that you reject the bid of Bella?
Yeah, and that's because of two other reasons that I didn't put in, and I apologize for that. We are concerned about the fact that the equipment list, and Mr. Trank, I think, will raise these issues as well. The equipment that was incorporated in the bid, there was a request for a listing of equipment. It appears somewhat clear to us that that equipment is not adequate to do the job. Bella has suggested that they are in the process of buying more equipment. I don't think that that's an appropriate time to buy the equipment after you put the bid in. Also, we're concerned about the overall lack of experience that Bella has or doesn't have with regard to this. Mr. Ambrosio will raise an issue, at least he did in his papers, to the effect that that the bid specifications don't specifically call for experience. But I would suggest to you that the definition of responsible bidder as contained in Title 40A says responsible means able to complete the contract in accordance with its requirements, including but not limited to requirements pertaining to experience, moral integrity, operating capacity, financial capacity, credit and workforce, equipment, and facilities availability. So even though they may not be initially or specifically stated within the bid documents, the whole concept of awarding to the lowest responsible bidder, which is your obligation, encompasses that definition. And clearly, the township has the right to go behind the bid documents to make a determination as to whether or not the bidder is responsible pursuant to that definition. And that's our concern.
So your recommendation is that the contract be awarded to Gaeta, which is the second bidder?
Well, that was, in fairness, I think that we should listen to what Mr. Ambrosia has to say, because we made that recommendation to you before we had the benefit
I understand that. I just want to get
of his response, okay, and his exploring his position.
Right.
But those clearly were our concerns at the time.
Okay.
And at no time in my conversations with Mr. Abe did he ever suggest that he was getting an attorney. So it's not that I had some anticipation that we were going to get something. So,
Okay.
like I said, we got it today at 4:30.
All right, so, go ahead.
Our role here is to make a determination about different facts that people are putting ahead of us. We can ask these people who are going to be testifying questions, and we ultimately decide which contract award.
I don't know that you're going to get testimony. You're going to get argument of counsel.
Okay.
I guess if you want testimony, we can certainly ask counsel if they'll allow their representatives to be sworn
But we're
in.
permitted to ask questions if
But
we
you
want to.
certainly are able to do that. I would suggest to you that in fairness to counsel, having done this more than once, that you let them place their argument on the record and then you ask them questions as opposed to
Yeah. We'll
using
try.
a more Socratic method.
We'll try.
See if we can do that.
Okay, so first up,
Mr. Trank?
Mr. Trank, you have the microphone. Just why don't you put on the record who you are? And
Good evening. My name is Richard Trank. I'm with the firm Trank, D. Pasquale, Delaferro, and Sedano in West Orange. My client is Gator Recycling, as you've heard. Tony Gator, the president of Gator Recycling, is here. He has 41 years experience. They have 107 trucks. They respect what the township has determined to do in these bid specs. Moving collection to once a week will, based upon the experience of Gator, will substantially increase. Recycling and commingling is obviously another way that you will continue to incur. Obviously, I want to thank the Mayor and Township Council for this hearing. I also want to wish happy holidays, and obviously tonight's the first night of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah. So there are three reasons, and obviously the Township Attorney summarized them, and because obviously you're going to hear some back and forth, and your questions are the most important. The issue of not recognizing the addendum is not in dispute. The addendum, in fact, was falsely identified. There was no addendum, and there is no dispute that your municipal clerk did the absolute right thing. There was an error in the bid specs. It needed to be clarified because your bid spec specifically says that we're going to accept bids on Monday, November 25th. Thanksgiving was that week. Thanksgiving was the 27th on Thursday. That doesn't change. But the bid spec in a couple places said, and bids are not accepted in New Jersey law on Mondays. They're never accepted on Mondays. So there was a confusion, and you don't want bidders bringing in bids at different times because, again, it's fraught with, you're only going to open them at once, and you don't want people playing games, and that's the whole concept of public bidding in New Jersey. So when your municipal clerk realized it, she issued an addendum. The addendum is in the papers, and it's clear. We're opening them on Tuesday, November 25th, okay? And there is in 3 different places in your bid specs, page 7, 26, and 30, it specifically says that you must comply with the rules, that this is not a discretionary item where you're gonna submit your bids whenever. It says sealed bids will be received by the designated representative at the time and place stated in the notice of bidders, and at such time and place will be publicly open and read aloud. So everybody knows and has a level playing field. Page 7 specifically says all addenda, and the municipal clerk's notice says addenda. Doesn't leave anything to chance. So issued shall become part of the specification and bid documents and shall be acknowledged. Shall be acknowledged. That's a mandatory word by the bidder in the bid. So again, there's no issue, and the reason we all know is you might have changed your minds between the time you put the bid out, and you may have done something more substantive, and you want to make sure everybody's bidding apples to apples, not apples to giraffes or something else. Page 26 of your bid documents have a mandatory checklist that is required to be signed by every bidder, and one of the items that must be provided, and it says required, acknowledgement of receipt of addenda. And finally, on page 30, there's no doubt that the document specifically has acknowledgement of receipt addenda, and there's no doubt in this record that Bella did check no addenda were received. The explanation that you're going to hear is that they were walking through the building and the municipal clerk said something about how the date is this. They came in supposedly on November 13th, 8-9 days before. Again, you do that at your own peril. You don't get a free pass because you show up early. You're showing up early and you have to acknowledge it. So again, not only do your specs say it, and those are the rules of engagement, but the law in New Jersey, as counsel said, require it. And I provided 2 cases. My colleague representing Bella has provided none. The law is clear. This is a mandatory, non-waivable. So again, I recognize the position this puts you in, that hey, you want to make the best fiduciary duty with taxpayer money and get the best service the cheapest, but as I'll indicate, this record is clear that Gator Recycling's capability, experience, and whatnot over 41 years versus someone who's been doing this for a year certainly is something that has to weigh in your mind in this case. But that's why the state legislature here, when it changed the local public contracts law, says this is mandatory. Acknowledge the addenda and play by the rules so that we don't have an apples to giraffes. Finally, and I gave counsel, I recently in Aberdeen lost this issue. My client in that case, Suburban Disposal, did not bid on recycling, bid on solid waste. They didn't acknowledge a change on recycling. The appellate division, I said, why should I? I didn't bid on recycling, I bid on solid waste collection. The appellate division said the purpose of the local public contracts law is to avoid favoritism, fraud, or other potential improper conduct by which the public could be shortchanged with regard to purchases of goods or services made by government. That purpose is advanced by the enforcement of the statute, which mandates rejection for failure to include the enumerated items. Aberdeen elected to make that page a mandatory item, and we see no reason not to enforce the requirement. So again, the law here is clear. The addendum had to be acknowledged, and even though in this case it was just a date change, the statute doesn't say except in date changes. 2, vehicles. Nothing could be more critical than the vehicles that are going to be on your streets on every level, environmentally, in terms of oil leakage and whatnot. What you got from Bella, and again, they're a new company, they're hopefully growing, etc. Mr. Gaeta was telling me he didn't even bid on municipal work till he was doing this 20 years because of the particularities of different towns. The bottom line is they put in 7 vehicles, and of them you have 2 SUVs, 2 R/O, that's roll-offs, a box truck, and then they wrote 2 on order Mack 2009 Packers. The bottom line is this town will take between 4 and 5. Keep in mind, you got to hit all 15 miles of this town on one day, Monday. And you don't want people picking up recyclables at 9 o'clock at night. They got to get out there and get it done, and that's what you've determined, and those are the rules of this bid. The bottom line is this is what they put on, and they have still not. They've tried to bring you in and say, well, we're ordering new trucks. That's what Bella is going to tell you tonight, and they're going to say, that's like giving Rich Trank the contract. I have no ability to pick up recyclables. The bottom line is, when you capitalize, and that's what I would suggest to you, why you see, when you look at those bids, as council read them over, you see the disparity between 198,000 and 500,000. Sometimes the money does count, and while we'd all like to save the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, this is about service, and nothing can be more important to a town than waste collection and recyclables, especially when you're trying to encourage recycling. There is no evidence before this council tonight, and they say they want to present testimony that now ordered the trucks. We have unequivocal testimony by GATA based upon the experience and everything else that they have the trucks and that they will be able to pick it up. By the way, as we were clear, the towns currently, GATA Recycling, so again, on the vehicles, there is no issue that you have no proof. Now, what they did is they presented you with a purchase order from American Hose and Hydraulics saying that we now have bids to buy 2 trucks for $60,000 and $50,000. It's not. It doesn't say there when they're delivered or how they're delivered. One is a 1999, they're old vehicles, and then they give you something from Industrial Finance saying that they have financing ability for $300,000. But when you look at them, that commitment letter, it says it's subject to satisfactory inspection, payment in 10 days, subject to no material adverse change in the financial condition of Bella, and the year and model has to be consistent with market conditions. So again, as we sit here today, you still have no proof that Bella could perform this. GATA Recycling currently does 19 towns in New Jersey: Wayne, Little Falls, Boonton, Denville, Netcon, Fairfield, Totowa, Franklin Lakes, Wyckoff, Waldrick, Moonachie. Again, the bottom line of the story is whether it's, I think they're shut out, and that's where there is no material issue to really consider. You don't have to inspect the trucks, but I believe your personnel have examined that and have certainly looked at the references and the experience of GATA. But I think it's game, set, point when you fail to acknowledge an addendum. And I think as a matter of law, the law we've cited, and there's no law cited counter, does not allow Bella. They made a mistake. Again, as we point out, and I've given your town attorney 3 towns in the last month, New Milford, Woodland Park, and the third one, I have it, Elmwood Park, have all rejected Bella on experience and on failing to acknowledge addendums. So again, they're new, maybe they're learning the ropes, hopefully they'll get the equipment at some point, but I don't think that your town is obligated under any circumstances when a bidder who has to know the rules is obligated to now say, well, we're going to take a chance with waste recycling in our town. Based on that, respectfully, thank you for your time. I realize it's late, and we respectfully suggest that Bella is not the lowest responsible bidder, and that their bid should be rejected, and GATA should be awarded this 1-year contract for recyclable.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I don't know.
Any questions at this point?
Can somebody explain?
What does fail to acknowledge the addendum mean, Roger?
I suggest the questions go right to our attorney.
That-
If you have them, you should go right to, not to Mr. Ryan, but right to the attorney.
Oh, I'm just asking Roger. I don't.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not clearly defined, okay? And I think Mr. Ambrosia is going to probably address that issue with you. So let me defer to his argument, and then I'll come back to it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for either Mr. Desiderio or Mr. Trank? Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. John Ambrosio of Ambrosio and Tomzak. I'm here on behalf of Bella Cleaning and Carting LLC, and I have with me tonight its principal, Benjamin Robb. First thing I want to say is not all addenda are the same. I think that's the particular case right here. Mr. Trank was absolutely correct, and so was the township attorney, that if an addenda is properly issued and notice is given to the bidders of a change in the contract terms, they need to acknowledge that. You had the form. However, both your bid specifications and the law make it very clear that if you're going to issue an addenda, that you intend to modify the bid documents so that it has to be acknowledged, it has to be served on all of the people bidding and anyone that's picked up a bid package. there's 3 ways to serve it. 1, certified mail. 2, certified fax. 3, hand delivery. That was not done in this particular case. And actually, earlier this evening, the current contractor, which was Basso Construction, was here. I asked him. He submitted a bid. In fact, he confirmed that he did not get.
In fairness, you have a certification from them? You have
I do not.
Okay, so that's just not fundamentally fair.
Right. And I'd also like to know if unfortunately, I was just hired yesterday to represent Bella Carding, so I don't know what bid documents were submitted by by Gator Carding. I have no idea if they acknowledge the same addenda. Needless to say, because it wasn't properly served, that's not the type of addenda that needs to be acknowledged. Now, what happened here? The only thing that happened was if you didn't get the addenda, you showed up a day early for the bid opening. No harm, no foul. The next, you go to the clerk's office, and that's what happened to my client. He actually went to the clerk's office. He thought the bid opening was on Monday. He went the next day. His bid was already in. If anything, it gave prospective bidders an additional day to bid. All right. Going to the vehicle issue. I need to first point out that your bid specifications don't specify that the bidder has to have ownership of the actual vehicles. My client is here tonight. He will testify he's taking delivery of 2 new Packer vehicles this Thursday. They're both 2009 Mack vehicles. They've already been painted and financing has already been arranged. He already has 2 Packer vehicles. Now, Packer vehicles, those are generally what they use for the recycling. But your bid specs also make clear that you don't have to use compaction vehicles. He also has 6 roll-offs that he could use if in a pinch. He's estimated that once a week they're going to need 4 vehicles to handle this contract. He's worked with Basso. He knows what the route is. He knows what time it's going to take. So he's prepared to have 4 vehicles ready and on the road January 1st of 2015. Finally, I just want to go to the experience question. It's true that Mr. Basso hasn't been doing a lot, or I'm sorry, Mr. Rabb hasn't been doing a lot of public contract work. He has done some. It was in the demolition field. In fact, his company has been in business since 2003, 11 years. He has 7 trucks, or how many trucks do you have right now, approximately, on the road?
8.
8 trucks on the road, 12 employees. He's gone through the whole vetting process for the DEP. One of the documents that your bid specs required him to submit was his Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity and A901 approval process. That's the license that's issued by the NJDEP to engage in the business of solid waste collection. Now, that's not the same as recycling. Actually, that's much more rigorous. In order to get that kind of license, you have to go through a background check where they test your integrity, they look at your finances, they make sure that you're not involved with any organized crime figures, you have no criminal background. And number 2, then you have to get a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. All right. The Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, which was attached to the bid submission of Mr. Robb, clearly states, I'm going to read this for you. After review of the application as filed, the department finds that the applicant, and that was Bella Carding, has met the necessary requirements as to financial responsibility, experience, and training to be granted a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity to engage in the solid waste collection business in New Jersey as specified herein above. So the Department of Environmental Protection has already made the determination that he possesses the requisite experience and credentials. That's why on solid waste contracts, these are generally much different than different bid contracts. The town had the authority to actually request, well, what is your specific experience with recycling? They didn't request that. They also had the ability to say, well, what vehicles, if you're granted this contract, are you going to use? That's not even part of the bid specs. If my client had left out the list of vehicles, his bid submission would have been complete. Right. Look, in the end, what we're dealing with is a $50,000 savings for the town. I'd like to point out that if he's awarded the contract, there will be a performance bond in place. So if there's a violation, the town will be made whole. All right. Thank you.
I do, because I thought it was a fair question. This is, Mr. Ambrosio, this is the acknowledgement from the GATA. So I just wanted, in fairness, to have you have that. And the second thing was, I was presented today, this afternoon, after I got your letter, with a copy of what purports to be an email that was sent from Sonia Harrison, who was our deputy clerk, and it was sent to, it looks like 4 bidders, dated November 13th. The date of the recycling collection is listed in the newspaper and on bid specs in error. The correct date is Tuesday, November 25th, 2014. Now, I can't attest to whether or not Mr. Robb got this or not, but it was certainly sent.
Well, again, if you go to the statute, in strict compliance with the bid specifications, email is not an option.
I think strict compliance with the specifications is what I'm arguing. So, but I understand.
Well, the statute's clear. There's three methods he would have been served. Number 1, certified mail. Number 2, certified fax. Number 3, hand delivery with a certification for the sender.
So you're not disputing that he did not acknowledge the addendum?
Correct.
Correct?
Correct. He was also told by the township clerk that, well, it's not required because it was informal. That was the discussion he had with the town clerk.
Right. That's your side of the story, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Whether it's true or not,
okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But I think it's irrelevant because, again, the town didn't follow the procedures to properly notice all the bidders of the addenda.
So your position is...
There's 3 methods on how to do it.
Right. So your position is that he didn't follow the process with the addendum, but that we were deficient in notifying him.
Correct. Believe it or not, there's no case law that I could find specifically on point.
Mr. Ryan.
Roger, can I ask, Mr. Desir, may I ask you a question on this? So this gentleman is suggesting that, we had a typo in the original specification, and we inadvertently said this thing, the bids were going to be opened on Monday. That was the typo, and we corrected the typo and said, no, the bids are going to be opened on Tuesday. And everybody knows that bids aren't opened on Monday, so if somebody read this thing, they would have immediately realized it was a simple typo.
Well, in fairness, an experienced bidder would be, but I'm not sure that everybody would know that.
So here's what I'm trying to understand what the argument is. Is the argument that because we said Monday and we emailed out a correction that this is a completely invalid bid and everything has to be rejected? Is that what people are saying?
Yes, that's one of Mr. Trank's arguments.
That's one of Mr. Trank's arguments.
Yeah, pursuant to the statute, that the failure to acknowledge the receipt of the addenda is fatal and cannot be waived by the township.
And there's no dispute that
And that's what the statute says.
Mm-hmm.
There's no dispute that there was not an acknowledgement of the addendum.
No dispute that he didn't acknowledge
right.
that.
Well,
but
there's actually a point that's more in his favor. The form to acknowledge the acknowledgement, the addenda, is in the bid package, and it's checked off no addenda.
Okay.
All right. So, in fairness, he did submit that form, but he did not acknowledge the addenda.
And this is true for everybody, for all 4 bidders?
What true?
that they did not acknowledge that they received the addenda?
No, Mr. Gators,
The only one, okay.
No, I didn't, in fairness, I didn't look at the other two. Okay. Because they were not.
I don't care about the other.
Of number 1 and number 2.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Gators.
Okay, hold on, slow down.
You absolutely did.
Yeah. Yeah. We try not to have yelling.
At least one other bidder also failed to acknowledge.
Okay.
You know, the question
All right.
becomes,
Let's
is
see.
this a type of addenda
Okay.
that needs to be acknowledged under the law?
Let's see if anyone else has any questions.
Then we'll go back to
Mr.
Frank.
Ambrosio
Right.
Oh, it's of Mr. Desiderio.
or Mr. Desiderio.
Is there a DEP license specific for recycling?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
There's no specific recycling license. Or in fact, you don't need a license at all. But most solid waste haulers also engage in the business of recycling. It's like a lesser activity, less regulated activity than having a solid waste license.
Mrs. Larrier.
So then are we saying that acknowledging the addenda means giving some sort of written confirmation that we received the change in the date? Is that what?
Oh, this is a question to our attorney.
The answer is yes. And I think counsel has meant it, and if Mr. Trank has a case on point, that's fine. The point that's being raised is many times addenda changes a specification in the bid, okay? As an example, the town made a mistake. It shouldn't have been picked up every week. We want it picked up every other week, all right? And you send those addenda out, and you want to make sure that everybody got it, and I think Mr. Trank argued that everybody's apples to apples as opposed to apples to giraffes, okay? This instance, the addenda was merely to correct that date because to avoid confusion. But Mr. Trank's argument is, okay, that's irrelevant what it was. The statute is clear, all right, that if there is an addenda, you have to acknowledge it. It is not a question of what the substance of the addenda is, that's what it is, all right? Now, counsel is, Mr. Ambrosio is arguing something different,
So then a follow-up question to that would be, had he given us this written confirmation that he got the change in the date, and he still showed up a day early, would this whole argument be moot and Mr. Trank wouldn't be here?
That portion of the argument would certainly have been moot. That's not really the issue. In other words, that is the technical issue. The second issue and the third issues that are being raised, which I think have some merit, and that is the question of equipment and experience. And again, contrary to what counsel says, I think that the issue of what is in fact a responsible bidder goes to those qualities, and even though the bid specs may not specifically address those, I don't think they have to. I think that the inquiry into what is a responsible bidder allows you to look past the bid specifications as to qualifications and as to equipment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So
Take your
then,
time.
so then our issue is, or Mr. Trank's issue is, that we are taking the lower bid, and he believes we shouldn't take the lower bid because in his estimation, the lower bid is not, the bidder is not equipped to handle the job. Is that?
That is part of his argument, yes.
Okay.
Bradley.
From a,
And just excuse me one second. And counsel, if I am misstating something, you'll correct me, I have no doubt.
Couple times over.
We'll get both of you back up here in just a moment.
Go ahead.
from a, I dare say, legal standpoint, did we send out the fact that the bid was changed?
The answer is that based on what I have seen, which is a copy of a fax, okay, it appears that it was sent out, yes.
An email or a fax?
Pardon me?
An email?
I'm sorry, email, I'm sorry, I apologize, an email.
But I'm saying, but notwithstanding the way it was presented by the presenter number two, from a materially legal standpoint, I don't know what the right term is, the fact that we sent it out via email still, from a purely legal standpoint, we did send out
Yes, and we also I believe we published it again in the newspaper, correct? We published it in the newspaper.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Leventhal.
This is I'll express it my way, but it's similar to what Mr. Brownlee asked. If by statute we must the bidder must acknowledge the addenda, aren't we required by statute to convey it in the way stated in the statute?
Yeah, council hasn't given me that statutory reference, but I'd be happy to look at that. What's the statutory reference that talks about certified mail, certified
That's right, actually, it's right out of your bid specs, and it's in my brief, or my letter to you. But it's 40A colon 11-23.2C1. And I cited the whole thing in my letter to you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Leventhal, your question is?
You want me to repeat my question, Mr. Desider?
Nope, just bear with me a second.
Mr. Manning, did we not pay the heating bill in here?
Really?
It's off now,
It's freezing.
but that goes off at this time.
My heater's on.
Maybe you should develop the insulating layer of fat like I have. Helps keep me warm.
Well, it's kind of interesting because it starts out, for all contracts except those for construction work and municipal solid waste collection and disposal service, notice shall be published no later than 7 days. But it is clear that it was not sent by certified mail, certified fax, or hand delivery.
Say that it has to be?
That's what this section does say. In writing by certified mail or by certified facsimile transmission, meaning the sender's facsimile machine produces a receipt showing the date of submission. That is not what we did. What we did was we sent it via email.
So then would that render that argument?
Now, let me go on, because section 3, which is not cited in this paper, says the following. Notice of revisions or addenda to advertisements or bid documents shall be provided as follows. For municipal solid waste collection and disposal contracts, notice shall be published in an official newspaper of the contracting and at least one newspaper of general circulation, no later than 7 days. So which we did publish, all right? So again, we're in recycling, so, you know, where does that fall within the solid waste collection and disposal contracts? There, it seems that we may have complied by virtue of the fact that it was published in another.
So if we say that recycling isn't included there, then well, how do you know that?
And council,
Solid Waste Advisory.
both council can address this issue, because I'm
Okay, all right.
with regard to that. But again, we still have the other two issues as well.
Okay, so factually, we know that Mr. Robb did not submit a form acknowledging, and in fact acknowledged that no addenda was received. No addenda were received for Bella Cleaning. That was submitted on November 22nd, 2014. We also know that, based on representation from our council, that an email was sent to 4 Carters, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But can I, and just so that we're clear, so as a result of these people not knowing that the date was Tuesday instead of Monday, they submitted a sealed bid a day earlier than they otherwise would have had to have?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know when they were received.
But it isn't as though
Is it written on the envelopes?
But it isn't as though a bid was submitted and opened and the competitors got an unfair advantage by seeing what this person's bid was, correct?
No, they're not opened.
They're not opened until the bid opening.
Until the bid opening,
We
which was
certainly
10 o'clock
accept
on the
it.
25th.
So the damage done is that maybe they submitted a day early.
Bella's was received according to this, by Sonia Harrison on November 24th at 9:35 a.m.
Okay, so,
Gators was received on November 25th at 9:55 a.m.
okay.
So what happens is the clerk's office writes the time that they received, the date and time they received them on the front of the envelope.
Right.
And they're not opened until the bid opens.
So the damage done by this is that these folks submitted their bid a day earlier than they otherwise would have had to have.
Not particularly relevant to the issue.
I mean, I don't understand what, okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Leventhal, and then we're going to hear from the attorneys again.
Okay, I think this is my last question on this one issue of three. But what date was the addendum published in the Star Ledger?
I don't have that information here tonight, now.
Well, did we meet the 7 days? Because solid waste has to be 7 days before. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be certified mail or anything like that. It can just be in the newspaper. So it's a very important piece of information.
I can go back and go.
Mr. Trank, do you have it?
Yes.
You have it? Good.
We'll represent that it was, Mr. Gaeta knows, because we have services. Anybody who does this all the time, we have a service, and it was advertised 7 days before the correct bid opening date, the Tuesday.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
But you don't have that document, you just have the
Mr.
representation from
Gaeta
you.
has seen it himself, and would testify that's when he...
All right, so,
Can I
Mr.
just
Trank,
wrap up?
watch out for your book. You have,
Just some quick comments. So, again, Councilman Ryan, the issue is the statute requires that addendum, which is clearly identified as addendum. You're right, it's fixing the date. Okay, nobody's saying it goes to the heart of the contract, but that's not, the statute doesn't say, it's only, as your attorney said, if you made a substantive change. It's any change in the rules, because those are the rules under which any bidder in New Jersey, and there are almost 1,000 people who could have bid on this contract, so that is what has to be acknowledged. And it's, again, going back to, we're reading the statute, whether it's email or publication in the newspaper or facsimile, the case I cited, and I provided your counsel with one that I lost in the appellate division. I argued that I shouldn't have to acknowledge a contract I didn't bid on. The appellate division says, if the governing body says you have to acknowledge, and as I pointed out to you, in 3 places in these bid specs, say it has to be acknowledged. You give the form. So if the governing body says it's a rule, then it has to be complied with, even if it might just be a date change. But issues 2 and 3...
A question for our attorney. If I'm understanding what I'm being told right now, we have no choice but to reject the bids, and why else are we having any more conversations?
No, it's not about...
I'm asking my attorney.
Because Mr. Ambrosio is arguing something different.
Okay.
I mean, that's...
But is this, I mean, do you, in your opinion...
Well, Mr. Ambrosio is suggesting that his client never got the addendum, okay? He cited a provision in the statute, and I read the other portion of the statute, which talks about it being published. This becomes a factual issue, all right? If you take Mr. Trank's position, then you are correct. Then there should be no question, but you should reject the bid.
And if we take the other gentleman's position...
Then you can award the bid to
well, and we just get past the first question.
Right. But I just want to clarify, Councilman Ryan, it's not about rejecting all bids. This is about rejecting Bella, because we followed the rules. We being Gator Recycling, which is the second low bid.
But aren't you arguing that we didn't follow the rules because we sent by email?
No, I'm not arguing that at all. I'm citing a case that I've given to your counsel that says your rules are what govern, and your rules said acknowledge the addendum in 3 places, and we did it. So no, it's not, you don't have to throw it out and start again. No, you got valid bids for the right service. And of course, as you correctly state, that even if you get past issue 1, issues 2 and 3 are vital to the services in this community. And issue 2 is they still don't have the trucks. They're saying on Thursday they didn't get delivery of trucks. By the way, they gave you purchase orders. They're not consistent with the equipment list they gave you. Their equipment list says 2009 Mack Packers on order. The 2 purchase orders they provided you, which were provided after the fact, which is not allowed, both talk about 1999 trucks. So we don't even know what they're going to use on the streets. And of course, the third issue is they don't have any experience. So it's nice to read the pro forma that comes from the DEP. The bottom line is, as everyone in this room knows, Gator Recycling has been doing this 41 years, does 19 towns. They only cite to the Jersey City Board of Ed that they just started this year. So again, on issues 2 and 3, you have a right, as Mr. Desiderio points out, to say they're not a responsible bidder. They may be the low bidder if they pass that first test, but they're not a responsible bidder.
We have a question, Mr. Bradley.
So if I'm just trying to, for you, maybe I'm restating my question in light of some of the other things that were just said, but I think for me, it sounds like it boils down to this. If that email that was sent out constitutes a valid notification, then the bid process was legit, and then we evaluate the vendors based on...
Not the email, but the publication in the newspaper.
Or if we have, by whatever means necessary, have notified the bidders, and the way in which we did that is legally compliant, then the bid process was correct, for lack of a better term, and then we evaluate the people who bid based on their compliance with what we asked for. Is that true?
I was with you up till the very end.
That we are...
If you find
that the process was valid,
that the addenda was issued, and that the Gator's bid, Bella's bid does not address that issue correctly in his bid specs, then you should not award the contract to Bella.
And so I'm asking if in fact the way in which we sent out the notification, either the 7 days prior or the email, if in fact the 7 days prior notification satisfied that requirement, then this process was valid, and therefore your conclusion is the one I should reach.
Correct.
Thank you.
I just want to ask Ms. Fritzen, do we have a copy of this legal notice?
I'm going to go check the file.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Just going to go check the file.
Please.
Can I ask, is it safe to say, though, that if everyone had acknowledged the addendum, we would actually still be here?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that we...
Well, Mr. Trank is nodding his head.
Okay, well, so he can speak for himself.
Maybe for other reasons.
Okay. Mr. Ambrosio.
Just want to make very clear, this is not a solid waste contract. That's a whole different type. This was a solid waste contract, as you probably know. There's uniform bid specifications that you have to follow. It's a much different looking bid document. This is a regular, it's one of the exceptions to the construction or solid waste collection contracts. Your bid specifications themselves say exactly this. When issuing addenda, the owner, meaning the township, shall provide notice prior to the official receipt of bids to any person who has submitted a bid or who has received a bid package pursuant to NJSA 48:11-23C1. All right. That was the provision I read before. All right. There's two things that they have to do. They have to publish notice in the newspaper, and they have to deliver in one of the three methods that I've enumerated: certified mail, certified fax, or personal delivery. They did none of those things. Right. Therefore, the addenda is not part of the bid document, and my client wasn't required to acknowledge receipt in order for the bid to be complete. Right.
So let me ask you a question. If
Yes.
you say it's not a solid waste contract,
Correct.
but the reference here is that for all solid waste contracts, you have to notify that there's been an addenda through those means, then how does your argument stand up? If it's not a solid waste contract, then the notification process doesn't matter.
I didn't articulate the way the statute reads. There are, solid waste contracts has its own provision for the giving of notice. And frankly, I didn't copy that down, but I believe it's just, you have to publish in the newspaper at least 7 days in advance. I don't know if there's a requirement that they also have to notify the bidders in any other method. All right. Pardon?
Mr. Desiderio? I'm sorry.
Well, let's let Mr. Ambrosio finish. I'm sorry. It's okay. Let's just move on. What else do you have to tell us?
Well, finally, big isn't always better. I know Gator has 110 trucks. They probably have 1,000 employees. I'm sure if you try to get Sears Roebuck on the telephone, or one of these waste management, let's put it that way, you get a name or a number. With Mr. Rob here, you're going to have personal attention. You'll probably have his home telephone number and his cell phone. If anything goes wrong, it will be fixed immediately. It's going to be a whole different type of contract that you're going to be dealing with. Plus, the town's going to save a significant amount of money for the first year.
So let me ask you this. So, I understand the homespun thing here, but I mean, the thing is we have to get stuff picked up. And it was mentioned before, there's 15 linear miles of roadway here that you have to go drive around to pick stuff up. That might even be less than I think, but maybe more. But are you saying that your client, when he's filed this, had the proper equipment to do it?
Actually, he did, but he's getting better equipment. All right, he had 2 Packer trucks and 6 roll-off trucks. Your bid specifications say there's no need that you have to use Packer trucks. They could also use non-compaction vehicles.
Right, but you also said that he's getting 4. Now he has 4 because he talked. You said he talked to the current provider, and you need 4. So clearly, when he submitted this, he only had 2, not 4 trucks.
4 Packer trucks. Those are specific.
No. Yeah.
Those are the ones that compact the waste.
Yeah, no, I understand. Right. The roll-offs. Okay.
But under the bid specs, he could use those if he had to. But look, his plan is he's not going to get equipment before he needs it. I mean, Gator has hundreds of pieces of equipment. I don't know what kind of shape it's in.
So this is a chicken and egg. So you're saying that we should consider him a responsible bidder, even though we don't think he has the equipment to do it?
He has the equipment. He has the financial resources to get the equipment. And your bid specifications don't provide. In fact, they didn't even provide for a list of equipment. And again, if he doesn't comply, and if he can't provide, handle his contract, and by the way, this is a small contract in the solid waste field. $200,000 a year, this is nothing. 1 day a week. I have contracts that pick up in Newark.
Well, can I ask you a question about something you just said?
Yes.
You said, I think, he has the equipment, and then you immediately said he has the resources to get the equipment.
Better equipment.
Bradley?
Maybe I'm hearkening on this point again. He mentioned something in his statement there, and I'm asking you about that, and it's the legalese bit again. The methods of notification, he connected it with an and. Is it an and or an or?
Well, no, if it's solid waste, and what it says is municipal solid waste collection and disposal contract, okay?
I understand.
Notice shall be published in official newspaper, etc. So, and there's no and for that one.
To the next the local newspaper or the hand delivery.
Section that Mr. Ambrosia cited, okay, there is an and, okay?
Well, I'm saying
it's
is there an and
publication and certified mail and certified facsimile or personal delivery.
So is there an and connecting the notification in the newspaper and one of those other 3 methods?
Correct. It's an and then 3 ors.
Gotcha.
Ran on November 10th.
Thank you.
And it was on November 10th, and it had the Tuesday date.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correction.
Star
And
Ledger.
just, you said it ran in the Star Ledger, right?
Yes.
And is the Star Ledger a paper of record for the town?
Yes.
And it was November 10th.
Yes.
So we could decide to accept Mr. Trank's argument that this bid should be rejected, or we can decide not to, or we can decide to not decide and hear arguments on all these other points.
What was the last part?
No.
But we've heard arguments.
What was the
Are we all, I mean, is there anything more for us to hear about this?
No, I don't think so.
Just one further request. My client would like to say something, since he's the one that submitted the low bid. Thinks it's important that you understand who he is. So I think he just has a small statement, with your permission.
Frank, do you have an objection?
If he's going to testify, that can be sworn, and I want an opportunity to cross-examine. I will clarify that he does not have the equipment. So, again, if he's going to speak, then I want an opportunity, I want him to be sworn, I want to cross.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I think in fairness, if he wants to testify, we ought to, but then I think it's right that if he's going to represent stuff, then he has to be sworn in, and then Mr. Trank has an opportunity to ask questions. So it's up to you. You want to put your client up there?
Okay. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just state your name, please.
Benjamin Rabb. So I would just like to comment on the couple issues that, first, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to even come up here to say anything. Thank you. So the couple issues that Mr. Trank and Gator are bringing up, I would just like to clearly address. I became aware of the bid a week or so before the bid date. It was clear that it was on Monday, and I believe it was the 25th, but I came on Monday to prepare to do the bid. At about 5 to 10, I realized there wasn't anybody here to bid the job. So I went into the clerk's office and I asked her, I saw it on the bulletin board that it was Tuesday. I then went into the office to clarify with the clerk if there was any addendum, anything sent, anything emailed, anything mailed. There was nothing. Otherwise, I went to college. It's not that difficult to figure out to put this paperwork together. I'm educated. Okay? So I then put the paperwork together. I confirmed that there was no paperwork sent, which there was not. Okay? I went to Liz to confirm that. There was no paperwork sent. So I even confirmed, and I said, I checked off that there was no addendum, which I did. That was in your spec. And it said, did you receive an addendum? I said no, because I never received anything. So I think in all fairness, there was nothing sent. Otherwise, if there was something sent, which I bid multiple towns, I'm bidding multiple school jobs, I'm bidding multiple work on a demolition level and a solid waste recycling level, every other town sends an addendum. It would be checked off. I did make a mistake once before on a previous town, which Mr. Trank would probably bring up. I made a mistake. I clearly marked that off when I did receive an addendum. This in particular town, I did not receive anything of an addendum. Okay, furthermore, I live in Bergen County. I don't receive the Star Ledger. I don't read the paper to get the acknowledgments of the bids. I belong to a website, and it publicizes all the bids. It gives the updates. Even on the website, there was no updates to show that there was any kind of addendum whatsoever for this in particular bid. Now, Mr. Trank would bring up that I did make a mistake last year on a much smaller level, and I made a mistake. I checked off no. Okay? And in regards to now the second issue, as far as equipment, yes, I have 2 trucks currently now that I own. I don't have any payments on them. The trucks are beautiful, they're painted, they're lettered, they're inspected. Everything's good on them. I have no problems. I have a mechanic at my shop. If there is any kind of problems with the trucks, anything could be handled. Anything. Okay? I did purchase multiple vehicles, which I will be delivered. I do not have them at this very second. Your bid didn't ask for the trucks. In fact, when I read the bid stated that you can use compaction units or non-compaction units with the bid to do the job. Okay, so because I'm so actively bidding the multiple towns and I'm bidding multiple work, I knew that I would be needing multiple trucks. That's why I put the letter in to show that I'm bidding multiple towns, I'm gonna need more vehicles. If I need the vehicles to start the job on January 1st or January 5th, the trucks and my men will be in town. No problem. Okay? I currently have 6 roll-offs now. I have other small vehicles, service vehicles. I have pup trucks, which are small dumping vehicles that can contain material. I have the garbage trucks. So to answer your question, to answer Mr. Trank's question, I don't have the trucks as of today. Okay? I purchased the vehicles. The vehicles will be in my yard this week. Okay? Done. They're already painted, they will be lettered, they will be registered, they will be inspected, and they will have my DEP sticker on them. No problem. Now, as far as experience is concerned, okay, I've been in business since 2003, okay? I began doing work under construction and demolition. I've personally built multiple commercial level buildings. I've built multiple residential buildings from a Saddle River to an Alpine to multiple ends of construction. I then began to get into demolition, which I own all my own equipment, and the equipment necessary to knock down something this size, something multi-story, any kind of piece of structure that can be dismantled, I can do. So I've had a generator license for maybe 8 years to be able to perform my own waste to do the job, which I've trucked my own material, I've brought it all to the dumps, all the facilities are familiar with me dumping all material in regard to any kind of construction debris or solid waste, okay? Since then, I then went for my 901, which I knew was going to be necessary to do any kind of solid waste transporting, we'll call it, or pickup. Okay, so since then, I did receive my 901 in May of 2013. It took me 2 years to go through the process to get interviewed by the state police. I was interviewed by the Attorney General's office. They looked at my financials. I have certified financials through an accountant to get me where I need to be. I got the money for the trucks through, rigor type background check on a financial level and the integrity of myself as a person. Okay, so since then, I'm actively working all my trucks now on an everyday level, from commercial stores to strip malls to roll-off boxes to anything to do with the solid waste industry. I recently then received a contract from Jersey City. Okay, I bid the contract in Jersey City in May. I bid the contract in May, and they finally awarded me the contract in November. They awarded me the contract in November, which I began the contract in November, which, once again, was a much bigger player. I mean, I told them the same thing I'm telling you folks is, I feel that I could be different because when I first started that job, that is an evening job. It runs 3 times a week. It's in the middle of the night, and I did it myself. I did it myself because I wanted to, A, make sure my men were going to be 100% capable of doing the job, which they 100% are. They do the job, no problem. I have no complaints, no problems. I did the job. So if I am awarded, or you did give me the opportunity, I would do the job. Okay? I have no problem going on the truck. I have no problem giving any use my cell phone, personal number to make sure that you can get me.
All right. I think you made your point.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Trank is going to have an opportunity to ask you questions.
I'm going to stand over there. Again, it's not personal. So this Jersey City is the Jersey City Board of Ed, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
And that's just the school buildings in Jersey City, correct?
Yes, yes, it
You're
is.
saying you started that, John, we're now, today's December 16th, you started that less than a month ago?
I started that first week of November. So today is that would be 6 weeks ago, actually.
6 weeks ago. So
Yes,
you
it
have
is.
6 weeks experience in a recycling contract. Let me finish, sir. Anywhere in the state of New Jersey.
Well, no. I have 3 years. I have 3 years experience, 4 years experience. Okay, because picking up recyclables on a curbside level. I'm answering your question, sir.
This is my time to cross-examine, sir.
Hold it. Let's just take it down a level. So,
You can ask away, no problem.
In the bid specs that you were issued by this township, did they not have a questionnaire? Yes or no?
You had a questionnaire that I signed.
That questionnaire specifically asks you what experience you have in recyclables from any government entity in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, and I filled it out and I put.
I'm asking the question.
Well, you're asking a question. I'm answering it.
yeah, let him, Mr. Trank, let him answer the question.
Sir, the questionnaire stated, do you have any experience in a government bid?
Right.
I replied with the truth. I'm doing Jersey City public school job.
Is that the only thing you listed?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I was open and honest on the paperwork, and I said...
Okay.
That's fine. We expect you to be honest.
All right. So you answered the question.
So you also did specifically provide a vehicle list, correct?
The bid spec didn't require...
Yes or no question.
Okay, well, I'm going to answer with a yes or no.
In fairness, Mr. Rep, in fairness, you had an opportunity to give a narrative.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Trank is asking you specific questions. All right?
Okay. Yes, I did.
Okay,
It is a
that's-
yes or no
that's
answer.
it.
Okay.
And
Yes, I did.
This is what you provided to Maplewood, correct?
Yes, I did.
And it lists 9 vehicles, correct?
Yes, it does.
And only 7 of them were owned by you on the date you signed the document, correct?
Those in particular vehicles that I specifically put on there were the ones owned. All the vehicles that I do own were not on there. I put that in there as an extra, not a requirement.
But
Okay. There was no requirement, sir, to ask of any vehicles in that bid spec.
So
And if
your
you
answer,
read,
your answer is you own more vehicles than what's listed
I
there?
own more vehicles than it is on there now currently.
Okay, but the
with-
answer is, you put that's the list you provided us and you signed that, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And you provided to Maplewood because you wanted to show them that you had the capability to pick up the Maplewood recyclables.
No, I wanted to show them that I was capable of doing the job, not necessarily picking that up. Once again, I was anticipating to bid multiple levels of work. Okay? So because it didn't state anything to do with the vehicles, okay? There was nothing in there. It even said that you could use non-compaction units. So I put that on there.
There was a vehicle dedication list that was provided to Maplewood, correct?
There was a list, yes, that I provided, correct.
And you certified that you understood that you had to dedicate specific vehicles to do this job, correct? To pick up the Maplewood recyclables.
Well, since then, yes, I knew I would need, yes, I knew I would
Rob,
need
Mr.
vehicles.
Mr. Rob, yeah, I don't think what's happened since then is particularly relevant. I think what's relevant is what you submitted at the time with the bid. Okay?
So if I would,
No,
okay, so,
I'm not- I
so
don't
in
wanna
all
argue.
fairness, sir, okay, excuse me, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, okay,
Nor-
because I
nor-
appreciate
nor
what
are you.
everyone's trying to do. But sir, if I didn't put a list in there of any vehicles, or I lied and put different vehicles, would that have been better?
No.
Actually, at this point, I got to object, because the problem that you have here is the vehicle dedication affidavit wasn't due until the bid's awarded. That's when it's supposed to be submitted.
Right. So if I'm awarded the contract, or if I was awarded the contract, I would have to guarantee you I did all my homework. How much tons would come out of this, how much material would come out, how many trucks we would need. I did all the homework. I made my own spreadsheet to handle the town. Okay? I even had the current hauler give me the maps, okay, of the town to help me do the job. It's a one-day job. The job that I'm currently doing now is 3 days a week. My commercial stops are every day, 5 days a week.
Okay. Mr. Trank, I'm sorry, you have more?
Mr. Rob, on this schedule that you provided, that you represented were vehicles that you either owned, some SUVs, I have an SUV, some roll-offs, and one Packard that you indicated on this list. You then put that you had on order two 2009 Packers 33 Rs.
If you looked at my paperwork, you just did. Okay, so listen, if you read my paperwork, I had my finance since October. Yeah, so since October. So those vehicles were situated and built since October. That's why to be determined on arrival.
Well, they were doing built in 2009, that's why you wrote.
Well, they were built in 2009, sir, yes. You're on top of the game.
Okay, so those are two of the trucks that you're indicating to Maplewood that you had on order as of the date of the bid submission, that Tuesday, November 25th, correct?
Well, the financing that I received. Oh, yeah, can I just explain, please?
Yeah, no. Ho. Let's just answer the question. So when you provided that, you made it, looks like you broke it down to vehicles you own and,
Well, I showed
and
a
two
couple
vehicles you own,
Listen.
you ordered, right? Two vehicles you ordered.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. That's all.
So then, after I filed my objection, you actually wrote a letter to the township attorney, correct, on December 9th, and that's your signature, that's your name, right?
Yeah, I put that together, yes. It was to answer your question, sir. Your comments, yes.
Yes, I appreciate that. You
Yeah.
did the right thing. So you provided this to show council that you now had the vehicles, correct?
No, I was showing the council, I was showing everybody that I purchased the vehicles, okay? Which, because of the start date, I would need the trucks. So once again, I just want to concur something that...
It's my turn to ask questions.
Okay, no problem,
You
sir.
recognize that you needed 4 vehicles at a minimum to do this job.
Correct.
And you know that the township wants you to have one backup vehicle available at all times in case one of the 4 breaks down.
Which is no problem.
Thank you. So you gave Mr. Desiderio this letter from you. You submitted this. And you actually said, I'm going to attach the purchase orders, correct?
Yeah, I attached purchase.
Let me just ask a question.
I'm answering you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you provided 2 what are called customer order with American Hose and Hydraulics, a company in Patterson. You're familiar
Okay, it's a
with, right?
company that I buy trucks from.
Okay, and
What's...
you represented to the township attorney here that these are the vehicles that you were going to secure between hypothetically the date of award and January 5th. Yes or no?
Some of. So yes and no.
Okay, well, there's 4 vehicles that are listed on
Yeah.
these.
Listen,
Can I just ask a question?
you're asking, I'm trying to answer, and you keep cutting me off, pal.
It's a yes or no.
Okay.
You represented to Mr. Desiderio in this township that these are the 4 vehicles you're going to buy.
Well, I submitted an invoice of vehicles I was going to buy.
But specifically, isn't it
Well, it's not
true?
specifically because I'm bidding multiple towns.
Oh, Mr. Trank. Let him answer the question. You submitted a letter to Mr. Desiderio that has 4 vehicles on
I
it.
answered on Mr. Trank's objection, okay? I answered the objections that he brought up, which was the addendum, the experience, and my vehicles.
Right.
Okay? I sent in the vehicles, okay, that I purchased and am going to purchase. Okay?
All right. That's the answer, right?
Okay.
That's the answer.
So specifically, isn't it true that none of those vehicles shown on these 2 invoices with American Hose and Hydraulics are the 2 2009 Packards that you represented when you submitted your bid?
Well, I'm going to be purchasing. Well, no, it is not.
Okay, then let me ask Bob. I'm showing you the purchase order. You see it, sir?
Yes.
Doesn't it say these are all 1999 and 2000 vehicles? 1989, these aren't at all the 2009 Packards that you put on the list that were, quote, on order.
Right.
Am I accurate in what I just said?
Yes, I didn't put it on there.
Okay, so where are we going?
Sir,
No,
Excuse
no,
me,
no,
Matt?
no, you had your say. Where are we going?
Didn't have vehicles at the time of bid.
Okay.
He then submitted stuff
Okay.
representing he was
Do you have any more questions for him? Why don't you do this? Why don't you end the questioning him? We'll give you a chance to go to the mic, we'll give you a chance to go to the mic, and then we're gonna take we're gonna make a decision.
Fine. The bottom line story is, as you've indicated, you've been rejected in 3 different...
Wait. You're making a
That has
statement?
nothing to do with Maplewood.
No, no more questions. If you want to make a statement, make a statement.
No, he said,
Oh, okay, all right, go ahead.
I want him to acknowledge the fact that he's been rejected in 3 times.
Well, you brought up about an addendum. I was rejected in a town, but I was rejected on a specific addendum that you brought up. So that's why I was admitting that I made a mistake. How many towns were you rejected in?
No, hold on.
How many towns was Gator rejected in?
Hold on.
Listen, it happens. Okay, we're all trying to fight for work.
All we want to know is, you mentioned one town that you made a mistake and you were rejected on the
I was
addendum,
bringing up
right?
the issue. I was
Okay.
bringing up the issue of the addendum.
Okay.
Okay, that's why I clearly stated.
Right.
Okay, that I made a mistake. I
Right.
clearly didn't get the addendum. Okay, so I did not. I checked it off wrong.
Okay,
I
all
made a
right.
mistake.
Okay.
In this particular case, the gentleman's bringing that up to me. I
Okay.
never received
Right.
it. That's why I was bringing that to the attention.
testify. That now lets Mr. Trank, no, I've listened. And Mr. Trank has asked you about 2 other towns. Were you rejected in 2 other towns?
Yes, I was.
And were you rejected for lack of experience?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. I think we're done with the questioning. Thank you. Let's Mr. Trank and Mr. Ambrosio, you can both have. You want to say anything more? Or you done, Mr. Ambrosio? Yeah.
The experience issue is, again, this is not a multi-part, multi-day contract. It's a smaller contract. What you're going to be getting with Mr. Robb is personal service. He has the financial ability, and that's the key here, to acquire whatever equipment he's going to need. He's never said from the start that he had the equipment, right? He's testifying today that he has equipment that's going to be delivered this week, and if he needs more, he'll get more. It's as simple as that. Just as Gata, if they need more trucks because they get more business, we'll get more trucks. Essentially, and the last point I want to make is that even though he may have been rejected by other towns for lack of experience, we don't even know what their bid specs were. It may have asked that we don't want to give the contract to anybody that has at least 5 years experience. If they make that a part of their bid specs, then that's something that we have to deal with. Plus, at the time he didn't have an attorney, he didn't fight it. So that's the difference.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Trank, you want to say anything more?
Just thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention. This is obviously, while counsel for the small...
Go to the microphone so that when the person is...
Thank you.
Sorry.
Again, I don't see this as a small contract. This is a critical service to your constituents, and providing it and having the requisite equipment, we still don't know. As I showed, he cited to you when he submitted it, he was buying 2009 trucks. The purchase orders he submitted to Mr. Desiderio are 10 years older than that. So we still don't, as we sit here, know anything about that, the vehicles that will be on your streets. That is something you have a right to consider as part of this process. And he admits that he's made mistakes before on addendums and other rules. Those are the rules. That's why the rules apply to everyone. And that's why people pay.
Thank you.
So can I say one more thing?
No. I think we're done. What do my colleagues want to do? Do you want to talk here, or you want to go into closed?
I move we go into executive session to deliberate on this matter.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Let me just ask Mr. Desiderio, based on the Sunshine Law, are we permitted to go into closed to do this?
Negotiations?
My sense of this is yes, but I have to say that I have a hesitation, by virtue of the fact that I think this is going to wind up in litigation anywhere, so my suggestion is that you do it out here, as you would do it, as a planning board or zoning board would do in terms of their negotiations.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Like that.
By the way, next to the soda machine.
I didn't want anybody to see it pass.
Soda machine down the and there's brownies. And there's really good brownies.
We got brownies in there? Oh, that's from yesterday.
They're still good.
Roger, where's Roger?
That's from yesterday.
Are they the one that is THC infused?
You want to talk about that?
Huh?
Yes.
Did you bring cake?
Somebody told me your birthday was past, so I didn't bring cupcakes.
Whose birthday?
Vic's birthday.
Are we off?
No, shouldn't
Off if you
You got to say $1 million.
Are the mics on?
Are we live?
They're on.
Okay. So before us, we have two bids. A dispute by the second lowest bidder, as to the form and the ability to be a responsible bidder by the first bidder. Responsible, I guess, carder by the first bidder. So, well, who wants to start anything? I mean, I'm willing to start some conversation, but if somebody has something.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
You know, we spent a lot of time talking about this business of the addendum, right? And, you know, whatever the law might say or not say, it seems to me that everybody who's in the public bidding business knows that we don't open bids on Monday, and the only harm done is that the person brought their bid in a day earlier than they otherwise would have had to have. I don't think that materially changed things. I understand that a precise legal reading might be different, but I don't think we should reject the bid of somebody who submitted the bid inadvertently submitted the bid a day earlier and didn't acknowledge the fact that the bid was due on Tuesday and not on Monday. So I mean, I'm not persuaded that that's an overwhelming reason to reject the lowest bidder and automatically award the bid to the second bidder. I mean, I think the other questions are more substantive and more worthy of discussion than that. So, I mean, unless people feel differently, I'd just dispose of the first question that way and say it's minor, it doesn't matter, and it's not sufficient. It's not a sufficient reason to reject the lowest bidder, in my opinion.
Mrs. Larrier?
I would agree with Mr. Ryan.
Can you pull the mic up?
Sorry, I would agree with Mr. Ryan. To me, that is probably the least substantive part of this entire issue. Plus, I'm not convinced that indeed we did disseminate the addenda properly. So I'm not convinced that he was required to acknowledge it, because based on the way we did it, I'm not convinced. What is far more substantive to me is whether he is able to do the job. I am disturbed by the fact that possibly the trucks that are necessary were not in hand, and if I understand properly, are not yet in hand. And I appreciate the fact that we would certainly get your personal attention with your cell phone, with your house phone. I guess my fear is that if there's recycling on our streets and you don't have the proper equipment, you don't have the truck, your cell phone number really won't do me a whole lot of good. So that to me is more of an issue than the addendum ever was.
Okay. Riley?
Appreciating the points that have been made by my two colleagues that have already spoken, because I think in terms of sort of the material aspect of the discussion from a sort of a layman standpoint, the ability of the organizations to deliver the service, who's the most responsible bidder, I think is, from a layman standpoint, probably the most important consideration. But notwithstanding that, I just want to make sure that from a purely legal standpoint, that the way in which the information was disseminated in fact constitutes a correct way of doing it, so that from the standpoint of whether or not the bid process was legally compliant, legitimate, whatever phrase there might be, I would just want to make sure that even though from a sort of material standpoint the other factors are more salient, that in fact our hands aren't tied by the legal part that kind of was the first question of the night, if you would. So I kind of need to get by that first hurdle before I can even consider what I might consider to be perhaps the more major consideration. I would just want to make sure that we're not doing something that's going to be that's going to run afoul of something from a purely legal standpoint. If we say, oh, we're going to go in direction A, when in fact we're perhaps not legally able to do so because of the first question, though it may be a small thing perhaps from a layman's standpoint. So I guess I need to feel comfortable with that before I can address the second question. And I'm not sure that I'm necessarily there yet. I guess I need something definitive to make me secure in that before I can go in that direction.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Leventhal.
We were presented with 3 issues, the addendum being the first one. I also can't understand from the presentations exactly what our requirements were. And it hinges, for me, on the definition of solid waste collection and disposal service. I'm sorry, municipal solid waste and collection disposable service. There's a subparagraph, there's a 1 and there's a 3. And we were referencing 1, but then 3 was referred to, but then I heard that 3 didn't apply because this wasn't solid waste yet. I don't know what that definition is, so, but I'll just leave that. But the issue for me is, depending on what the definition is, I don't know whether or not the municipality complied with the statute. 2, on vehicles. My way of seeing it is that roll-offs are okay because non-compactables are allowed. In fact, Waste Industries picks up my trash and they bring a pickup truck. That's what they drive around in, and that doesn't even hold that much. Certainly wouldn't be adequate for recycling, but for the whole town. But for vehicles, compactors, or roll-offs seem to me to be adequate. Experience, granted, the private contracts are not municipalities. Jersey City Schools is, but it's a new contract. And yet, it occurs to me that how do you start unless you start? And if you have the experience of picking up recyclables and bringing them to the processor through private contracts, and you do have a municipal contract through Jersey City Schools, again, as new as that is, that you have experience certainly in the field, quite a bit with 40 contracts, with the privates and the beginnings of municipalities. So that criteria is met. And I don't see that, in my mind, that does not continue to be an issue. So the issue for me is this addenda. I'd like to think that we don't have to hold to the statute, but I believe that we do. But I don't know the definitions and therefore which part of the statute applies to this. So, can't answer.
So first off, I want to apologize to both of you because we screwed up. We made a mistake on the date, which forced us to do an addendum, and that's part of why we're here, and has muddied the waters. My position is right now based on well, on the addendum, I think that we did not do what it says here. It says here that you have to notify the people who received the bid package. By certified mail, we did not do that. There's no evidence we did a fax transmission with a receipt or delivering it in any other way. Other than by email, which, at least from this document, doesn't say that that's permitted. We never made an attempt to find out, even by sending the email, whether you received it. So I think we were deficient on that. You know, we had two mistakes. We made a mistake on the date, and I think we made a mistake on the notification. So, for me, the addenda issue is not there because I think we didn't meet our standard that we needed. My position is that we ought to give the contract to Gata. I think that there is nothing in the bid, at least from the information that we've seen here, that says that you have to have X amount of packing trucks. Just have to prove that you can do the job. And, you know, the job starts on January 5th, and you need to have in place by January...
Did you mean Gator?
Gator or Rob?
I'm sorry.
Talking about Gator or Bella?
Bella.
Bella, I'm sorry. Sorry, take it all back. Bella. You need to have the... thank you, Mr. Desiderio. So my position is to give it to Bella. You need to have the equipment by when the start date is, January 5th. I don't think there's been any evidence here that it says you need to have the equipment by the time you filed the bid. So I think it's... you know, he was the lowest bidder by $45,000. Presumably, he testified that he's going to have the equipment and he's going to be out there with sufficient people to do the job. And honestly, if he doesn't, we fire him. I'm sure in the contract we have the capacity to fire him, right? Mr. Manning? Yeah, or whoever. I mean, so I'm not convinced that that he can't do the job. I think Ms. Leventhal said you got to start. He put the low bid in, and we ought to issue him the contract. So let's go around again and see what others. Mr. Ryan, you spoke first, so let's do Ryan.
Well, okay. So
Larrier, Brownlee, Leventhal.
I was not, as you think I might have gathered by what I was saying, I was not persuaded by Mr. Trank's argument that their bid should be rejected on the addendum issue. But I am, frankly, a little concerned about the ownership of equipment issue. I appreciate that this is a new business, newer, less established, just getting started. I don't think the fact that other people rejected their bid matters, frankly, or is persuasive. You know, we don't know the details of those other contracts. This is a new business relatively new business that's starting out. The fact that the first couple times they tried to bid on a contract and didn't get awarded or got rejected isn't important to me. But what is important is, frankly, the thing that troubles me is, and which makes me reluctant to agree with you, Mayor, is this business of, do they actually have the horses to do the job? Do they actually have enough equipment? And you know, what they said is, well, we gave you a list of trucks. We didn't have to do that, but we gave you a list of trucks. And then we heard testimony that, well, that's not really the list of trucks, or, you know, there's trucks that are going to be delivered soon, and we promise we'll have them on time. And I'm just a little troubled by that. I'm afraid, you know, no disrespect intended to the business here, but I'm afraid we're going to find ourselves in a situation where this new business might not be ready for prime time for us yet. But that's that's unfortunately, you know, a subjective judgment based on.
That's what you're going to use, right? That's what you heard the testimony, you heard the information here, and you're going to have to use that. Yeah. Mrs. Larrier?
Yes, thank you. I would agree with you regarding the addendum issue. I think it's a non-issue, only because I don't believe that, as I mentioned, he's required to acknowledge an addendum that we didn't send out properly. So even to Mr. Frank's point, the rules are the rules, and we didn't follow the rules. So thereby, regarding the addendum, I don't believe that Bella Cleaning needs to abide by rules, because we obliterated the rules right from the start. I too am concerned, only because even now I am still not really clear on what equipment is in place, and I'm old school. I believe a bird in hand is worth 3 that are still on a purchase order. So that is my concern. I am not convinced by the fact that he was rejected by other townships, because I would bet you if we had Mr. Gaeta up here, he was rejected by other townships at this point in his career, and likely will be again, even now that he is a big player. So that, and his experience doesn't, or his, as Mr. Trank might say, inexperience, doesn't convince me. My concern is I don't necessarily want to have to fire him, because to me, it would be far worse to be fired from a contract than to not be awarded the contract to begin with.
Mr. Brownlee?
So to me, much of tonight's discussion has kind of come down to 2 things. One, I'll call it the legalese part of it in the first part, which I expressed my thoughts on first, and the second came down to the, for lack of a better term, the fitness of respective entities. Some of Mrs. Larrier's sentiments in terms of perhaps under a similar cross-examination, some of the same types of answers might have emerged on the other side are possible, but that's purely speculative, so I can't really comment on that. In terms of the actual trucks, however, you know, to me, I think, Mayor, you said this, my main concern is whether or not the trucks will be there on the day the job is to begin, not whether they were there at an earlier point in time, because obviously the point in time that's of most concern to me is when the service is to be delivered. You know, obviously we're taking the gentleman's word that the trucks will be there on the date the service begins. There's nothing here that I can point to from a purely legal standpoint, if you will, that I don't believe the trucks will be there. And so I basically have to take his word for it that they will be, and to the comment that was made by some others, if in fact they're not and the service is not up to par, then we have the recourse to fire them. And so from that standpoint, I don't have any recourse but other than to go with the lowest submitted bid as well. And so that's the direction that I'm leaning.
Well, I still have a bit of a dilemma in the addendum issue because of the definition of municipal solid waste collection and disposal. But one thing that's occurred to me is that if you don't need a license for recycling, then, well, that wasn't stated under oath. I don't know how to handle this one because I don't know if our proposal, request for proposals, was part of paragraph 1 or part of paragraph 3, because I don't know the definition of municipal solid waste.
Is a defined term.
It is not a defined?
Is a defined term.
It is. Could you please help me with that? I don't mean to be a stickler, but I have a very simple vote.
It is a defined term under this section of the statute. And I'm not sure the definition is going to help you a great deal. But notwithstanding that, municipal solid waste means as appropriate to the circumstances, all residential, commercial, and industrial solid waste generated within the boundaries of a municipality, or the formal collection of such solid waste or recyclable materials in any combination thereof when collected through a system of routes by local government unit employees or under contract administered by a local government unit.
Okay, that's okay with me. It does include recycling.
It does
my
include,
interpretation.
it does address recycling.
Could I hear the second part again?
Sure, go.
Could I just hear the second part again that you just read there? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Let me
I just
get
want to hear
to
the second
the
part.
relevant part. Or the formal collection of solid waste or recyclable materials in any combination thereof when collected through a system of routes by local government unit employees or under contract administered by a local government unit.
Okay, and that, I was going to refer back also to I'm one of the township representatives on the Essex County Solid Waste Advisory Council, and we deal with recycling and solid waste. So, based on that, okay. So, in my understanding of that definition for solid waste, municipal solid waste includes recycling. Therefore, we come under paragraph 3, which only requires notice in the town's public newspaper publications, like the Star Ledger. So we did that. And we have not found this bidder to have followed the statute of seeking to learn about that through the proper channels. So, according to the statute, there's no redemption for this. This is a major fault, which, I'm thinking as I'm talking, which is really unfortunate because I think that they do have the trucks, and I do think that they can provide the service, and if not, as we've said, they would, the contract would be broken. But because the addendum, and maybe it needs updating in that statute, but because it states it the way it states it right now, I have to find that they did not meet that requirement, in my opinion. So I'd have to vote for Gator, only because of that.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion then?
Yes, you can.
Mr. Chair, I move that we reject the bid from Bella because we regard them as not being the lowest responsible bidder due to a failure to, due to an inability to do the work as we specified.
Is anyone seconding that?
I would second that.
Discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jazera,
Yes, sir.
if I may. Deputy Mayor Leventhal cited the second clause. There were two clauses that there were the first and the third. I think you referenced the third. I think I asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again just to make sure I'm clarifying. Does the first clause apply also? In other words, are the first and third connected with an "and," for lack of a better term, or are they to be treated?
No, they're
are
two
they separate?
Separate sections. 1, for all contracts except those for construction work and municipal solid waste collection and disposal. So 1, if you find that it's a solid waste and municipal solid waste collection, that section doesn't apply.
Okay.
Okay? For municipal solid waste collection and disposal contracts, 3.
It's the converse.
Right. Notice shall be published in an official newspaper of the contracting unit and at least one newspaper of general circulation published in the state no later than 7 days. Okay, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays interrupted prior to the date of the acceptance. So 3 then would apply, and you just have to publish it in the newspaper.
And we did that.
All right, that, yeah.
The belief is that we did that.
So told, yes.
My motion's intended to reflect my statement that I felt that based on the ownership of equipment issue, this bidder was not capable of doing the work, and that's why I would be voting to
And it's
reject.
only based on that.
Well, wait a minute, no.
That's
No,
my.
hold
This
on,
doesn't
hold-
make sense.
Hold on. The motion is to reject the bid and award to Gata. So whatever your motivation, no, that's the motion. Whatever your motivation for voting for that motion is up to you. Your rationalization for that.
Fine.
But his original motion, not just now, his original motion was that it wants to.
Mr.
reject
Desiderio,
all
what's the
reports.
appropriate form of a
He
motion?
didn't
The
say.
motion should be, excuse me, the motion should be to either to accept one bid or reject one bid, whatever you want to do. The reasons you've stated on the
Right.
record, if this is going to be reviewed by a court, it's going to be reviewed by a court, they're going to have all of your reasons. You need to make a decision on one or the other.
Right.
How you ultimately all get there is really not.
Is a personal decision.
So my motion then is to reject Bella and to accept Gata.
Right, it's been moved and seconded, and we're in the discussion phase right now. Do you have anything more?
Just on this motion. So, just to reaffirm my understanding. So, the third clause applies, and we complied with that third clause. So, our process was legit, for lack of a better term.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
How we got there is a separate issue.
Forget how we got there and all that, but the bottom line is,
It appears yes.
okay. So if the process is legit, then we are evaluating the two vendors based on what was submitted, et cetera, for lack of a better term. Okay. Can you go around and come back?
Well, we're gonna.
No, I'm sorry. I just need to finish my thought.
We're still in discussion. Anybody else have anything else to say?
I just have to finish my thought, and I don't want to hold anybody up. I'm sorry.
So, I'm just looking at some of these legal documents, and one of them here talks about, what we're deciding tonight is whether or not Bella is a responsible bidder. And what it says here, based on 48:11-227, responsible means able to complete the contract in accordance with its requirements, including but not limited to requirements pertaining to experience, moral integrity, operating capacity, financial capacity, credit, and workforce equipment and facilities available. On January 5th, we have representation from Bella that they are going to be able to do that. So I'm not sure how my